This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto ran away because of Sakura after Sasuke Retrieval arc. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Uchiha Sasuke and his elite group, Hawk, had led Sound's latest attack on Konoha. The next in line to become Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto, stood among the crowd, wielding his spear with frightful skill and slaying enemy ninja from all sides. He passed in and out of the ninja's field of vision on both sides, vanishing long enough for everyone to speculate about his next target. With a sly smile and blood streaming from his dark blue armor, Sasuke entered the clearing. Sasuke pulled out his sword and challenged Naruto, saying, "So Dobi, it seems that you've got some skill. Unfortunately, it was you I choose to kill." After throwing the spear up and slamming its blade into the ground, Naruto rose from his battle stance. The ninja pulled his dagger out from behind him. It was a finely crafted katana with a red handle and gold-colored steel. The colors of the nine-tailed demon fox. Sasuke disappeared and came down on Naruto, who just grabbed the blade out of the air and broke it in half between his fingers. The Uzumaki stood, prepared for any attack. Sasuke tried to stand, but Naruto went to where his spear was, took it from the ground, turned, and threw it, spearing the last Uchiha's head to the ground. "Don't toy with me, Sasuke. I've had enough of your mocking me. I could have killed you at any time, but now I'm fed up, so take your death like a true ninja." Naruto threw his former teammate back with a blast of pure chakra before rushing forward, severing Sasuke's leg tendons. Then he withdrew the spear. Naruto turned to the terrified ninja and said, "All you had to do was come home, and all of it could be avoided." As he wiped the blood from his spear on a man's cloak nearby, the Uzumaki uttered the words, "Any who don't wish to share a similar fate will turn and run." Every enemy ninja fled and turned tail. Haruno Sakura ran to Naruto from the numbers as he glanced at his remaining soldiers, who were all cheering. The years had been kind to this stunning kunoichi. Feeling the blood on her clothing, Naruto took her in his arms. "You've done it, you've defeated him, no more worries," Sakura replied. Sakura looked up at him and said, "I know, but keep in mind that I can't go back with what I've done. The council will never agree." Tsunade did away with the council. She's the sole leader now. No council to say you can't come back. So come home, Naruto, we've missed you. Currently, Naruto was being carried when he woke up on someone's shoulders. He said, "Where am I?" With Sasuke's hitai in his left hand, Kakashi remarked, "We're outside of the gates of Konoha." Sasuke escaped. "I failed her, I promised Sakura, and instead I end up a bloody mess." Kakashi, who was having trouble standing, put the blonde down and said, "Well, you can tell her yourself. Here she is." With teary eyes, Sakura approached him and asked him while holding his shoulders. Naruto turned his face away and asked, "Where is Sasuke? He thought he'd killed me and left. I failed." He was interrupted by the sound of a hand striking his face. "I can't believe you. You promised." Then she turned and stopped him. "He ran me through with Chidori. You think I could move after that?" he said, limping past her. "I hate you, Naruto. Never speak to me again." He threw up and landed on the ground with a thud after saying, "Fine, but you'll regret that one day." After he was picked up, Kakashi hurried him to the hospital. Tsunade started working on him right away, doing the best she could to fix him. After 2 weeks. Naruto's point of view: when I woke up, my muscles felt weak and stiff from inactivity, but his felt much worse. I was sitting up when Shizune entered, which surprised her, to be honest. It took me around 15 attempts to reach the top. She told me about my injuries and said, "He did quite a number on you. We managed to fix you up, but you'll need serious therapy to get back to your usual strength." I recalled what I had told Sakura, and I meant to follow through on my promise that I had no plans to complete any missions. How long until I can do missions? I asked myself. A month maybe. Are you willing to accept visitors? There are a number of people who've been by to see you. It's early morning, so they'll be by again likely. I'll let anyone come in, except Sakura. Don't let her in. She's visited the most. Don't let her in. That Sasuke fangirl had gone too far, and I didn't want to even see her. Even though I have limits, I was never going to tolerate her nonsense indefinitely. Alright, I'll make sure that she doesn't get in. Do you need anything? My favorite was miso. Ramen miso flavor, please. She returned a few minutes later with my food. I said, "Thank you," and started eating. Shizune was a really nice girl who always worked behind the scenes, but she could do much better. "So if you want, we can start your physical therapy in about an hour. I know how you want to be Hokage, so getting back to training is important for you." "Yeah, I'll start as soon as I finish." Normal Pav. After a month, with fresh clothes and almost full strength, Naruto left the hospital along with a flurry of fire jutsu. Sasuke and his Chidori had destroyed his old jacket. At the moment, He was wearing gray, basic doji-style clothes. He hurried back home to get something more in line with his personal preferences. It dawned on him then that the date was October 10th, and he needed to complete it tonight. The following day, as a kind of unwritten custom, the people of Konoha frequently looked up at the Hokage mountain when they woke up, but this time, when they looked, they saw a message. The active Hokage, Tsunade, looked up and noticed it. "Don't try to stop me, I'm already too far away by now, Naruto." She turned and went to her desk, saying, "Get me Sakura and Kakashi." She started asking the questions as soon as the two ninjas showed up. When he was in the hospital, he would say that his precious people had given him up. It seems someone said something to him that made him think they all hated him. Kakashi thought about the whole thing. "Let's check his house, maybe he left some clues." "Sakura, do you know anything about it?" Sakura feared that she had been the one to force him to leave because she had stated that she hated him. "I don't." Shizune said that Naruto told her not to let me see him. "I haven't seen him since he returned from the mission a month ago." Tsunade questioned, "Why would he do that? Didn't he have a crush on you?" Sakura could see it all coming together now, and he left because if he was on a team with her, whom he had a crush on, and she told him she hated him, it would be hard to avoid talking to her, because when he didn't bring back Sasuke after promising me he would, I got angry with him, and said, that I hated him. Tsunade's rage grew as she screamed, "You did it? You're the one who made him think everyone hated him? How could you be so selfish, Sakura? Thinking some traitor is more important than your teammate?" "Sakura, I have to say that I'm ashamed of you. Remember what I said about those who abandon their teammates are lower than trash? Well, in my eyes, you're even lower than their kind." Kakashi sighed with a wave over his shoulder. Kakashi departed, saying, "I'm going to go see if I can find any kind of clues at his house. I'll come back when I get something." As a result, Tsunade had a genin and was furious with the genin. Sakura's eyes filled with tears as she said, "What to do with you? I mean, you did chase off the only reason I came back here, and I could technically have you imprisoned for causing one of our own to become a missing ninja." Sakura said, "If you could train me, I could then go and search for him. I could get him to come back." She never would have said those words if she had known what they would accomplish. With her hands clasped behind her back, Tsunade stood up and started to slowly circle the younger Kunoichi. She studied her so intently that a microbiologist would appear to be gazing into space. In a stern and icy tone, Tsunade asked, "And why should I train you? Why not someone else? What makes you think that you are even worth my training?" Sakura recoiled a little. I can't answer that. Truth be told, I was always a hindrance to my team, and I have no special abilities." Tsunade remarked, "Then you're starting with a clean slate." "What? Medical ninja are the most difficult to train because they often have other training to interfere with their medic training, but you don't, so essentially you're the perfect student right now." Sakura bowed low and said, "Thank you, Shisho." Unknown location. Without even stopping to eat, Naruto had run through the night while carrying all of his supplies. He dropped his pack and fell on his back when he was finally unable to run any further. Naruto sighed, "Well, now all that's left is to find a teacher, since someone would be looking for something there, leave the village, and find a strong teacher who could make him stronger than he would ever be in Konoha." He intended to leave the message and a scroll in his home. "I know of a man, the only human other than that Yondaime to ever best me in combat, a samurai by the name of Tenchi Mitsurugi. Look for him in the northern Iwa country. We're only a day from the border. Rest and move quickly, since that damn woman will probably send someone after you," the Kyuubi said from within Naruto's head. Until now, Naruto had only used his newly discovered ability to speak to the Kyuubi when he needed his chakra. "Right, Tenchi Mitsurugi, Northern Iwa. Why are you helping me, Fox?" "Because if you die, I die, and I want to live long enough to see you actually become strong. I'll not have a weak vessel." "Well, then to Iwa it is." Naruto took the only food he had in the house, opened his pack, and started preparing some ramen. After 2 days, at last, Naruto had arrived at the town where the samurai were said to reside. He finally received some good directions after almost an hour of asking around, and he was directed to a wooded area on the house's eastern side. Naruto entered them after learning that the house was roughly a mile away. His shinobi training warned him to avoid booby traps. As he made his way cautiously through the forest, at last, he felt a strong presence and noticed a man training in a clearing in front of the big house. He was looking at the ninja, had never seen a spear in his hands cut and stab imaginary enemies with such fluidity. Suddenly, the same spear was coming at him. He ducked and was shocked to discover that it was pierced into the tree almost a meter deep. After drawing the katana at his side, the man approached Naruto, who took the spear from the tree and emerged into the clearing. "Who's there?" he asked. With the spear by his side, Naruto said, "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Are you Tenchi Mitsurugi? Why does a ninja from Konoha seek me out? I no longer call Konoha my home. I've come to ask you to train me." With his katana still drawn, Mitsurugi stood just out of range of the spear and asked, "How did you find me?" "The Kyuubi no Yoko he is sealed inside me and told me that you were the only living being to ever best him in combat." "Those ninja are sealing demons in their children? I'm the only one. 13 years ago when I was born the Yondaime Hokage sealed Kyuubi into me in order to save the village." Mitsurugi sheathed his sword and moved closer, reaching out to grab his spear. "I see. Then you must bear a heavy burden. I'll train you then, but you must make a vow that you will now renounce the title of ninja, and in 2 years when you complete your Jenpuku ceremony you will take the title of samurai." Naruto removed his headband and put it in his pack, saying, "I'll do it." Mitsurugi turned to face his house and gestured for Naruto to follow. "Good, now you must understand that every ounce of training you do will be towards the effort to better yourself in combat. No stealth, no trickery, just pure combative skills." Mitsurugi led him to his room and told him to go to sleep because he would begin training the following day. "I'll show you the room you will stay in." It was 6 a.m. when Naruto woke up, not completely different. He wore his new outfit the following morning. A black hakama, a white gi, followed by a gray one. He wore tabi socks and soft leather coat straw sandals on his arms. He entered the main room, where Mitsurugi was preparing their fish and rice breakfast. Naruto and his new instructor took a seat and started eating breakfast. Naruto said, "This is really good." With his wakizashi in his belt and his katana beside him, Mitsurugi said, "Thank you. When you live alone, you either learn to live with bad cooking or learn to cook well." Curious as he was, Naruto asked, "Anyo, sensei, why do you not put both swords down? I've seen samurai who do that, but you are different." Mitsurugi pointed to the long, straight scar on his left cheek, which looked as if someone had thrust at him and he had just managed to avoid it, because Naruto, I've been caught off guard while eating before, and couldn't grab my weapons. That is what this scar is from. Naruto looked at his sensei, a big, strong man with black hair that was pulled back almost entirely into a ponytail but had bangs hanging down. He had a beard and a mustache, but they weren't thick and bushy. "I see. So what will my first training be?" Naruto asked. "How many push-ups can you do?" 300. "How far are you able to run?" 10 kilometers is my max without rest." "Good. You will do 30 push-ups and run 1 kilometer." A sly smile split Mitsurugi's face as he said, "That's only a tenth of my normal workout, sensei." Mitsurugi finished his breakfast. Naruto got up, and they went outside. When they arrived, Mitsurugi pulled a scroll out of his gi and said, "You'll see why, boy, and in time you'll thank me for it." "Are you familiar with gravity seals?" "Yes. They make you appear much denser than you actually are by simulating your gravitational pull toward the earth." Then Naruto realized why he was only performing a tenth of his typical workout. They were invented to make weights less cumbersome. The words, "gravity seal," "activate," caused Naruto to go from being his normal weight to 30 times that, and he struggled to stand as Mitsurugi unwrapped 2 pieces of paper and adhered one to the Uzumaki's back and the other to his chest. "You will have 2 seals put on you. Each is a 15 times amplifier, making your body 30 times denser than it is now. Do 30 push-ups." The Tenchi barked out. Naruto assumed the push-up stance and tried hard to do even one. After his body attuned to his new density, he managed to do them a little easier. Finally he finished and his muscles burned as though fire was running through them. 1 kilometer. "Hurry." Naruto got up and started to walk, then jog slowly, and finally run, as some would say after a kilometer. Naruto passed out in front of the older man's house. He held a bakken with a seal on it, making it 10 times denser than usual, and said, "Now that you've finished your morning workout, I'll begin teaching you basic stances and strikes." Now the mistake that ninja make while using a sword is their grip. Angle your hand when holding a sword, placing your thumb and forefinger on the handle while your middle finger grips only moderately firmly. Your pinky and ring finger should be your strongest fingers. Now your first stance is the forward stance, Seigen no Kame. You point the blade at the face of the enemy. Your legs are bent slightly, feet apart. Mitsurugi nodded as Naruto assumed the stance. Your first hand is held about a centimeter below the hilt, and your second hand is held at the pommel, your pinky coming to rest about a centimeter from the pommel itself. The boy followed Mitsurugi's instructions, and although the grip felt strange, he was confident he would get used to it. "Why keep the seals on, sensei? This is difficult." Mitsurugi sheathed his sword and advanced on a tree, saying, "Because Naruto, let me show you the fruits of this training. Don't move from that stance." In a single, untraceable movement, Mitsurugi was on the other side of the tree, which was easily 2 feet in diameter, and the tree had fallen. "I see, and you used not an ounce of chakra." No, Naruto samurai are only allowed to use chakra for sealing and finishing moves. Samurai were experts at sealing, and ninja who collaborated with sealing-focused clans would pick up tips from them. Cut down from Seigen no Kame now. 1,000 times, Mitsurugi yelled, and Naruto started with his first blow, lowering the sword as he advanced. 2 extremely difficult tasks, before being told he could rest after 1,000 swings. Naruto felt as light as air as soon as Mitsurugi took off the seals, saying, "After lunch we will show you Chuden no Kame, the middle stance." Sensei, I would speed up the learning of techniques by using the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. May I do that here? No, there will be no shortcuts when learning Bushido. You may use that technique when doing Kata practice, having them attack you, and you will use each technique on a live opponent in this way. You may choose to spar against your clones so that you can learn where gaps in your defense are, but only then. Mitsurugi was what many would call a genius of hard work, and he wanted his only student to be one as well. Naruto ate his lunch quickly, allowing his muscles to recover slightly. He learned the Chuden no Kame, a lower forward stance, the blade pointed towards the chest or belly rather than the face or throat. He was required to do 1,000 downward strokes that way as well. By 5 o'clock Naruto was finished with the 3 front stances, Seigen no Kame, Chuden no Kame, and the lower forward stance Gedan no Kame. He ate dinner at 5, and then continued training. After dinner he continued learning stances. The 5 main stances consisted of Seigen, Chuden, Gedan, Hidan, 1, and Migidan, 2. He would have to do some sort of cut from each of these stances, and do it 1,000 times with 30 times gravity and a sword that was bearing a 10 times gravity seal. By the end of the first day, Naruto was so tired he could hardly move, but felt light and the soreness was gone by the next day. For a week Mitsurugi made the ex-ninja repeat this process, and without knowing it Naruto was progressing well. He now had 200 strokes for each different kind of cut, slash, or thrust he could do from each stance, 3. After 1 month, Naruto was learning simple kata, from 1 stroke of the blade to 5, but never more than 5 strokes. Mitsurugi explained that the samurai never carried on long drawn-out sword fights because they were often outnumbered and faced with the possibility of ninja hiding nearby waiting in ambush, so they couldn't afford the longer battles, and their swords, the soul of this warrior class, would sustain too much damage from these battles, and in order to preserve their soul, they devised quick and effective methods of dispatching his enemy. Rarely though, a long sword fight would happen, or they would be caught in a large war, and that was the reason for the extreme stamina conditioning that Naruto faced, quite common among the samurai of the past and even of their own day. Naruto absorbed all of this information like a sponge, learning about the ancient religion of Buddhism that was practiced in the land where the ancient warrior culture known as the Japanese came from, and even their modern language was heavily based on it. 5. He also learned about the ninja, who were masters of stealth who used only their bodies and minds and no chakra. 4. Finally, he learned about the myths and history of the warriors who first arrived in the Gokuni, men who had no knowledge of chakra, demons that roamed the world, and anything else that was not common knowledge in today's world. Will I ever be able to go back to Konoha, sensei? To make amends for my past, not as a ninja but as a samurai? What does settle mean to you? Mitsurugi had heard of individuals who sought power only to return and murder those who had mistreated them in their home country. I mean to tell them the exact reasons I left, and to tell the people whom I was mistreated by that I will forgive them if they ask it of me. You've learned a lot from your meditations, and even though you were called a demon, you are a better man than all of them. Many samurai, in fact, are unable to make peace with their pasts when they seek a new life in the proper way. The Mitsurugi no Tenchi Ryu, Sword of the Angel style, is something you are genuinely deserving of. Did you come up with this look? No. My name is passed down. My great-great-grandfather was the founder of the style. We have taken the name because of the legends that surrounded our style in the older battles. I see, it was like an alias originally, and it became your grandfather's name, and he passed it to his son, who passed it to your great-grandfather, who in turn passed it all the way down to you. Yes, Naruto, and if you wish to, you may take the name as well, but it is not a necessity. I have years to decide that, though I will likely keep my name. It is a decision only you can make. After a few months, Naruto started practicing the samurai's wakizashi, tanto, empty hand jujitsu, and karate. He practiced with the spear, bow, and all types of weapons, as well as horseback riding, combat from horse to ground, and horseback archery. In just 6 months, Naruto learned a lot of skills that he would never be able to use as a ninja. Konoha. After Sakura joined the Anbu, she trained under Tsunade, who was a formidable slave driver. If Sakura was telling the truth, rivaling Guy's harsh training regiment, and she also received medical training. She had to learn to endure beatings, torture, and interrogations, and the Haruno had advanced rapidly in just 6 months. Kakashi sighed, wondering in silence where Naruto was. As if by magic, someone had discovered a lead on his whereabouts, so Kakashi took the report and went straight to Tsunade's office. You claim that they saw him in samurai attire obtaining supplies in Yokusho, a village in northern Iwa. Yes, ma'am, and it's said that he's studying under the renowned Tenchi Mitsurugi. He could march on us by himself and level the entire village if he so chooses after completing his training. I don't think Naruto would do that, even though the journal he left us states that he wants to make amends for his past. Please find out how long it takes to become a samurai and let me know, since he knows Konoha's secrets. Naruto is categorized as a Class B missing ninja until that time, but it is made clear that no one is allowed to pursue him. Yes ma'am, though if I remember correctly, he'll be training for another 2.5 years. When he turns 15 he'll have the Jenpuku ceremony, and then learn the ugi of the style and be considered a samurai. Still, we need to take precautions. If he is training with someone of that caliber, like Sasuke who is with Orochimaru, then we have to be careful. He could turn on us at any moment, and settling his past could mean a number of things. I understand. Please complete the form, and I will post it at the Anbu headquarters. I'll also speak with Gekko Hayate, who is familiar with samurai customs. Thank you Kakashi, I appreciate it. Tsunade grinned as Kakashi made the subject shift sound like he was clearing a rumor. No problem, so Sakura tells me that you're working her like a mule. There are a lot of ways to do the things I make her do. I've made her do things the hardest possible way every time. It's my punishment for her words to Naruto. I see, so instead of giving her the easy route, you're making her even more fearsome while punishing her at the same time. Exactly. He turned and walked away after Tsunade gave him the form that needed to be displayed in the Anbu lobby. Yokusho Naruto was walking along a seldom traveled path, carrying the supplies to his new home in buckets held on a rod over his shoulders, when he was stopped by a man he recognized as an Anbu from his own village. I see that Tsunade has put a price on my head before we engage in combat. Allow me a moment to put my groceries down. Naruto walked to the side of the road, set the buckets down, and took the wooden rod in his hands, assuming the stance of a spearman. You intend to use a stick to combat an Anbu? The ninja pulled out his sword and charged in. Naruto waited for the sword to strike, knocked it away with the rod, and then rushed in. Grabbing the ninja by the wrist and disarming him with a quick arm twist, he picked up the blade and threw the wooden rod away. He assumed Migidan no Kame, the lower right stance, holding the blade off to his right side with the point down, and said, "No, I just needed it to get your blade. You see, I haven't just been sitting around these past 7 months." As the ninja started to form hand seals, Naruto rushed in and used an upward stroke of the blade to cut them down. I see, then I won't take you lightly this time. Naruto was unaware that Anbu had been ordered not to pursue him. I'm sorry that I had to do this, but I have no desire to go back to Konoha yet. I can take you back to my home and give you the medical attention you need, if you carry a message back to Konoha for me. Naruto pulled off the mask, stowed it in his gi, carried the man to the side of the road, dug him a grave with the rod, bowed to the grave, and took the mask with him to his house after the Anbu choked out, "Fuck you demon." Sensei, a Konoha Anbu, the Special Operations Unit, stopped me on the road. I used my own blade to cut him down and buried him. I need to send a letter to Konoha. Is that okay with you? In front of his teacher, Naruto was on his knees. Yes Naruto, send them my regards, tell them thank you for giving me such a good student. Naruto went into his room and started writing. I'm honored Sensei, thank you. This kind of behavior would seem out of character to anyone who had seen Naruto in Konoha, but Naruto always knew manners and had finally found someone to whom he felt the need to demonstrate them. Tsunade, I came across one of your Anbus today. I've enclosed the Anbu's mask with this letter. I buried him, but I want to know why you're pursuing me with men other than leaving. I haven't done anything wrong, and I do plan to go back and make amends, but not for another 3 years. I will come to the village with the intention of killing you and every other ninja I come across. If any more Anbu come after me, Tenchi Mitsurugi, my sensei, expresses gratitude by saying, thank you for giving me such a great student. I must admit that I have learned more from him than I ever would have in Konoha. Where was I now? Oh, I see. How is Sakura doing? I promised not to talk to her ever again. I still have feelings for her, and I do love her, but I will also have to make amends if she truly hates me as she claims. How is Rock Lee doing, too? I've learned that a genius who works hard is a true genius, and I now understand his way of life anyway. If you don't bother me, I'll tell your spies to stop spying on me when I return on good terms after my stay here. I also want Kakashi to know that I'm curious about his well-being. All I need to do is write back. Tsunade. Instruct the messenger to go to the Yokusho Inn, and I will pick up the letter there. Naruto Uzumaki he had enough rice and other supplies for a few days, but he went into town on a regular basis to talk to the villagers and establish a relationship with them as Mitsurugi had advised. Naruto rolled up the letter and tied a ribbon around it, saying he would take it to the mail runner when he went into town tomorrow. The innkeeper was a close friend of both himself and his teacher. After completing his daily training, Naruto was in his room meditating before bed when Mitsurugi knocked on the door. Mitsurugi had clearly decided that Naruto was ready to handle a real weapon, saying, "Naruto, we are to go to the blacksmith's tomorrow. You're going to receive your first blades. I thought you said that I wasn't to receive my swords until my Jenpuku. While that is the typical situation, I'm going to have you carry your wakizashi, which is typically given on the 13th birthday, along with a tanto because you were attacked today." Mitsurugi grinned and said, "I can't lose my student because he is under-equipped." Naruto bowed, already on his knees from meditation. After saying, "Thank you sensei," Naruto went to bed and resumed his meditation. Naruto sent his letter the following day and went to the blacksmith with his teacher. Naruto was shocked to learn that the elder man had already had the blades made when he said, "Hanjo, I need those blades I asked you to work on." Tenchi, of course, when he returned with 3 swords, a katana, a wakizashi, a tanto, and a spearhead. Hanjo, the town smith, with whom Naruto had worked to establish a positive rapport, said, "I made the spearhead, but you will have to get your own shaft. I assume you have something for that." He gave the 3 swords to Mitsurugi, who paid the man, and they departed. Naruto took the wakizashi and the tanto, tucking them both into his belt but only intending to use one at a time. "I've taught you the majority of the history and various tactics. You have your first blades, you have drawn the blood of a man who tried to kill you, and you have done a lot of things that have brought you one step closer to becoming a samurai. You are currently 13. And in 5 months you will be 14. Since the training typically begins at 12, you might have to complete your Jenpuku a year later, but we'll see. I feel like this was what I was meant to do. Before I thought my dream was to become Hokage, and never paid mind to samurai, but now I feel like my destiny is to become the best samurai I can." Naruto was 15 years old when he killed the Anbu, and he had changed a lot since then. He was at least 5 feet 8 inches tall, and his body was full of strong, wiry muscles. His body still held secret power, but he was no longer the small, wiry child he had been before. His short, unruly blonde hair had straightened out and now hung to his shoulders. He wore it down occasionally but usually tied it back. The whisker marks were still there, but he also had a scar through the 3 on his left cheek from an incident with his shadow clone that got past his defenses. Mitsurugi was standing with both swords in his belt and Naruto's sword in his left hand when Naruto woke up and got ready for his training. Wearing the same colors and outfit, he also picked up his wakizashi and tucked it into his belt. He handed Naruto his sword and said, "It's time, Naruto, your Jenpuku ceremony will be now." Naruto bowed and took the sword. Tucking it behind his short sword, master and apprentice entered the training field, as it was called, and stood in front of each other as he assumed the Batu stance. Naruto felt his teacher's raw power. This is the experience of dealing with a real master. A man who dedicated his life to face-to-face combat, Naruto thought, and he also assumed his own Batu stance. The first blow would often end it all. Mitsurugi looked at his student and sensed a great power from him. Not Kyuubi's power, but a power that only Naruto's soul could control. With a flash of steel, he was upon the boy, his sword bearing down at speeds that were unthinkable, even for the Batu jutsu. At the last second, Naruto turned his blade edge down and drew upward, knocking the older man's blade away while he simultaneously ducked to avoid being beheaded. Naruto drew his wakizashi with his left hand, and made to attack at his teacher's legs. He stood with his wakizashi in his left to his side and his katana in his right hand. "You decide on the 2-sword style. Knight, or you two will give you twice the chance of a deadly blow, so why fight with just one?" "Good." Mitsurugi ran in, paused, and then came from the side, slashing, but Naruto jumped back. Even 2 hands couldn't stop a blow from his sensei. He came in with the katana, which was blocked, then the wakizashi, and finally he went for a low kick, which knocked his teacher off balance. The uneven ground only helped. Naruto came down hard, managing to get a glancing blow on his teacher. A small red line opened across his left arm, a shallow cut from a thrust that barely touched the skin. Shallow in the context of a katana wound. This meant that the bleeding would stop just before you started to feel lightheaded. Mitsurugi held his hand up to signal Naruto to stop, then took some bandage from his GI, and wrapped it around his bleeding arm. Mitsurugi then entered the house and produced both his own and Naruto's spears, saying, "Lucky it was the left. I favor Itoryu, so my left hand is only somewhat important." Naruto had wrapped an orange cloth around the base of the spear, where the blade was bolted to the shaft, because it was his favorite color and stealth was not as important in samurai warfare. He immediately recalled the time he had killed the ninja, and he always took naturally to the spear. It is the same rules as with the sword, land a blow on me and you pass. Mitsurugi intervened, striking down, and Naruto ducked to the right, swinging the spear like a staff at his inner knees in an attempt to take him down. Mitsurugi locked his knees, causing the shaft to strike them innocuously. The older man then delivered a sweeping blow, removing Naruto's legs from under him. Mitsurugi had the point of his teacher's spear near his throat, and in a flash, Naruto grabbed the spear, jerked it away, and rolled, taking his own as well. Now, 2 spears? Mitsurugi pulled out his sword once more. The older man was standing in Seigen no Kame, and Naruto was in a modified Nitoryu stance. Mitsurugi attempted a sideways slash, but the steel blade sliced through the hard shaft. He stepped back, then twisted his hips to bring the steel butt cap into his teacher's ribs, stunning him. His right foot followed, then the spear blade, then his left foot, and the blade struck home, leaving a cut where the butt cap struck. Mitsurugi collapsed into a kneeling position. You act as though you've been using that spear your entire life. Perhaps you ought to be a horseman. Mitsurugi was aware that Naruto was probably compensating for his lack of skill by using his own abilities, as he was reserving a quarter of his potential. Using a spear comes naturally to me since I prefer close combat. The bow is my hardest weapon, but swords are my favorite. Well, the next test is that Mitsurugi pulled out more bandages and stopped the blood flow. Go get your bow, and meet me at the archery range. Shortly after his teacher arrived with his bow, Naruto was standing at the range, a 100-foot strip of cleared woods with targets scattered throughout, his bow and arrows slung over his back. He knocked an arrow and fired, saying, "You have to match or outshoot me." Naruto easily executed a 20-foot kill shot, which is easy for even amateurs. He then matched a 40-foot shot, and then a 60-foot shot, landing another kill shot. Mitsurugi's arrow passed through the target's chest at 80 feet, and Naruto hit the throat. You believe you can attempt the 100-foot shot? Mitsurugi put his pupil to the test, and Naruto grinned. Naruto knocked his arrow and said, "I bet you I can land another throat shot. You're aiming at the smallest target on the body, but a hit there will kill any opponent." Mitsurugi repositioned his aim so that his arrow would strike the target, released it, and it landed on the target's head. Naruto focused on his aim, adjusted to account for the wind, and released his arrow, which struck the wooden silhouette's throat. "Good job. I probably couldn't even make that shot at this distance." He grinned. "You have the day off. Tomorrow you are to begin your training in the ugi of our art." Naruto had finished his Jenpuku, and he now had the legal right to carry his daisho as a samurai. Naruto bowed his teacher. After practicing his sword against himself for the remainder of the day, Naruto went to his room and took out a letter from a box. There it was, the letter from Tsunade almost 2 years prior, and he wanted to read it again before learning the ugi. "Naruto, Kakushino Urashima, the Anbu sent after you directly disobeyed my orders, decided to kill you because you were now officially a missing nin. His brother had been killed by the Nine Tails. I'm happy to hear that you want to return, but what are your plans? You probably won't be able to regain your ninja status if you're training with a samurai. I recently found some information that I would like to share with you. Your parents' names. While searching, I came across the will of Namikaze Minato, the 4th Hokage, who was your father. It is addressed to you. Your mother, a whirlpool country ninja named Uzumaki Kashina, died while giving birth to you. I'm sorry you weren't aware of this earlier, but I want you to know that I'd be happy to have you back if you want to, and I'll find you a job to support you. Sakura has joined me as an apprentice. She truly misses you, Naruto, and on the day you departed, she asked to train with me so she could come get you. I believe you ought to speak with her when you return." Since he has no one to train with, Kakashi has returned to Anbu. He also misses you, but he won't tell anyone but Jiraiya and me. Naruto, we miss you here. Please return as soon as you can. Tsunade. As Naruto rolled the letter back up, he started to consider his options for what to do once he arrived. He couldn't accept missions like a ninja because, according to Japanese tradition, ninjas were hired for missions that samurai would not accept because doing so would violate their code of honor. Kyubi, who always knew what to say when Naruto couldn't think of anything, suggested, "If you want to be of use to that woman, become a Hitakari, a samurai assassin." Naruto sat up straight. He'd been lying down before. Why hadn't he considered that? After saying, "You're a genius, Kyubi," Naruto lay down again. Since there was nothing else to do but watch Naruto's life, Kyubi had been thinking a lot. It comes with age, given that your mind isn't dull. Naruto then fell asleep. After waking up, getting dressed, and putting his swords in his belt, Naruto went out to breakfast with his teacher the following morning. "Sensei, when I return to Konoha, I wish to become a Hitokiri. I made you promise that you would never be a ninja since a samurai Hidakari only uses his swords to kill. It is still Honorable Mitsurugi knew that Naruto could simply return to Konoha and continue his ninja career. But Naruto had never acted dishonestly before, so he allowed him to be a Hidakari. You will be learning Arugi, which is known as Tachi no Kasai, today and for the next month. Both of them left for the training grounds after finishing their breakfast. You will recognize it as the use of chakra, sending it through the blade of your weapon. Mitsurugi started by demonstrating the fundamental concept to him. He directed his chakra into his katana, causing the blade to appear to glow. Then, he swung the sword, and with a shout, a huge wave of chakra erupted from it, slicing through several trees. You must perceive your sword as an extension of your body in order to accomplish this. Once you have sufficient energy, you will swing the blade and use your ki after focusing the chakra into your hands and the sword. 1. With enough training, you can use the move with multiple swings, launching a barrage of chakra blades. This will launch the energy like I did. Naruto then tried it, failing one after another until the sun started to set and they went inside for dinner. He was able to focus a great deal of energy, but he was unable to fire it. You've picked things up quickly, and you'll be able to do it soon if you train like this. Mitsurugi told Naruto about his struggles with the technique he had as a child, saying, you mentioned that your shadow clone art could help you learn, didn't it? Mastering it takes years though, but I've been practicing for 35 years, and have possibly come close to mastering it. Yeah, but I thought I wasn't to train with that anymore. Naruto, when you passed your Jenpuku, you became samurai. You may use it. It will also help in combat. If you can make enough clones, you can create lines of soldiers and attack en masse. I'll begin tomorrow. After that my training time will be reduced by a few days. As a result, Naruto finished his dinner and went to bed. After a few hours, both Naruto and the clones were able to use the technique, and by the end of the day, the charge time for the technique was reduced to 5 seconds. Mitsurugi was shocked to learn that Naruto could turn 35 years of training into 4 months of training if he used this many every day. Upon waking up the following morning, he went about his usual morning routine and created 100 clones, the most that could be trained in the field. After a month, before deciding to leave, Naruto had completed almost 10 years of training. He thanked his teacher, packed his clothes and all of his camping supplies, cleaned the room he had occupied for the previous 2 years, and set out. Since travel was slower, he decided to go from town to town to avoid any Anbu who might be after him. He could kill any of them without hesitation, but he didn't want to kill any more soldiers from his own village. He arrived at the next town and the inn before nightfall. After traveling for about a week, Naruto arrived in Fire Country. Since Konoha was 50 miles from the border, he decided to try to reach the nearest town. If not, he could always camp. Fortunately, he arrived at the roadside inn before the storm arrived, anticipating it and being concerned that he wouldn't have a place to stay. He set out again the following day and made it all the way to Konoha by noon, but the guards stopped him at the gate. One said, "State your name and purpose." "Tenchi Mitsurugi, Uzu. I'm here to pay my friend a visit." "In a ninja village, what sort of samurai has a friend?" the other guard inquired, and Naruto merely grinned and replied that anyone who understood the real history of ninja would comprehend. The men were confused, but they allowed him entry anyhow, and Naruto thanked them before entering the village. Naruto declared, "I'm home." He then went to get ramen, which he hadn't had in a long time. After arriving at the ramen shop in Ichiraku, he put his bag down. "Hello. Welcome to the ramen shop in Ichiraku. Could I get you something?" the owner's daughter, Ayame, inquired. "Well, what would you suggest?" "I'm not sure." Naruto recalled that after 2 years, with his transformation, no one here would recognize him. She remarked, "Well, my favorite is the miso. I'll have the miso. After that, could you also let me know the location of the nearest inn in this area?" Ayame gave him directions to the nearby inn, and Naruto smiled, attempting to project an air of a courteous ronin. "I have no real home because I'm a bit of a wanderer." Because it was so hot today, Naruto decided to take a dip in the nearby river. After eating his lunch, the cool water would be soothing. As it was a hot day, Ino noticed the blonde samurai on the other side of the river stripping down to his boxers while Sakura had her back to the river. Sakura and Ino had taken the afternoon off to have a picnic by the river. "Ino, what are you looking at?" In response to Sakura's question, Ino took her hand, put it on her head, turned her head, and let her see the muscular blonde who was slipping into the water. "You should ask him out." "Forehead, Ino. I've never even met him." Sakura reddened. "But take a look at him. He is divine." He would probably say, "Yes." "He's not a ninja either. I bet he's just another ronin. They pass through here all the time." Sakura was interrupted by the arrow that pierced her sandwich and pinned it to the tree 20 feet ahead of her. She turned to see the blonde man standing with a bow he had never used before. Pointing it at them, he dried off, dressed, and got out of the water as he was putting his swords in his belt. he ambled across the water and approached the girls. I saw that both of you were watching me. I apologize for spoiling your lunch, but I detest perverts, Naruto said coolly to the shocked girls. I believe that samurai were incapable of using chakra. Naruto sealed his bow into his wrist and said, you are sadly mistaken, miss. You see, ninja were originally a branch of samurai designed to do the missions that would break our code of honor. We designed seals as well, and why am I able to water walk? Let's assume that I had a teacher with a good education. Kyuubi taught Naruto water walking, which he used to hone his kata. What's your name? Did Ino ask. Mitsurugi Tenchi. Mitsurugi no Tenchi, Ryu's fifth successor. So, that's the name the teacher gave you, but what is your true name? Sakura inquired, and Naruto gave her a smile before giving her a stern look. No one had ever seen it before, so Sakura winced in her mind as Naruto whispered, I'll tell you a secret if you tell me why your eyes show so much pain. I have no idea what you're discussing. Tell me your name, please. My name is Haruno Sakura. Miss Haruno, I'm not to be taken for a fool. I know what pain looks like, and you show much of it. What's the point of telling you? You're completely unknown. Because I'll reveal my true name to you if I go now. You'll be wondering, now who's that man Tenchi? Whenever you see me, and you'll never understand my true identity. You're staying put, then? For a while, yes. Sakura grinned and said, then meet me at Han's tonight at 8 p.m. Well, you'll have to show me where it is. I don't know where anything is here, except Ichiraku's and the inn that Miss Ayame told me of. Fine then, meet me back here later tonight. Alright, so will we continue to visit Han's? Naruto was aware of the location of Han's, a bar that was primarily used by shinobi but also open to others. Yes, Sakura warned, but don't be late, or I'll kick your ass the next time I see you. Naruto laughed a little, and Sakura arched an eyebrow. What's so funny, Tenchi? You don't believe I could? No, I don't. She pulled a pair of black leather gloves from her equipment pouch and said, okay, I'll prove it. With a mad smile, Naruto looked at the girl in front of him. Don't blink, Haruno. Naruto was off in a flash, and he sent her flying into the trees with an open-handed strike. He then came at her again, kicking at her as she stood, causing her to raise her arms in defense and stagger back. Who is this guy? Sakura dodged a kick and leapt the next sweep, but she didn't anticipate him grabbing her and throwing her into the river like a ball. He's attacking with more power than Tsunade Shisho. Stop! Sakura got up and walked away from the river, grabbing twin handfuls of Naruto's GI as he asked, still grinning. Who are you the fuck? Sakura threw him this time, all the way across the river, and she was on him once more. Naruto rolled to his feet after she struck him with an overhead twin hammer. I'm Tenchi Mitsurugi, as I mentioned my birth name doesn't matter to you? Naruto danced away as Sakura attempted to attack once more. Sakura then created dozens of shadow clones of herself, which Naruto smirked at and cut down with his sword. He was able to avoid killing her because he remembered which one was truly her. Are you genuinely curious about my identity? Naruto slid the left half of his GI off his shoulder and sheathed his sword. Sakura, tell me if this scar looks familiar. I tried to get your boy toy back for you, but he did this to me, Naruto said, pointing to the huge, circular burn scar directly above his left lung. I've woken up every single day for the past 2 years with pain in my shoulder, followed by pain in my heart, Naruto said, sliding his GI back up. As Naruto approached her, he said, do you know why, Haruno? You and that damned Uchiha are to blame. Okay, that goes away eventually. He hurt my body, but you broke my heart. Her knees went down because she had dreamed every night that Naruto would return as the happy person he had always been, forgiving her with a simple, I'm sorry, I was angry, I didn't mean it. She had never anticipated the depth of rage her former teammate had in him. I apologize, Naruto, I really didn't mean. The samurai's loud voice interrupted her. When you say something straightforward, you apologize in that way. Naruto took her by the shoulders and lifted her to her feet, saying something like, I think that shirt looks really stupid. He didn't say, I hate you, never speak to me again. The only reason I'm talking to you now is because I have some things to say. The next time I see that damned Uchiha, I'm going to kill him. Naruto yelled right in her face. She winced at the sheer noise of his voice. Second, Naruto said that one a little more softly before yelling once more. Third, if I ever hear the name Uzumaki Naruto from you at any other time other than after I decide I'll forgive you for the hurt you've caused me, I'll kill you. Naruto shouted, then released his hold, stepped back, and knelt down. Thank you, Sakura. Sakura was confused, saying, if you hadn't said what you did, I wouldn't have met Mitsurugi Shisho, and I wouldn't have become who I am today. He stood and stared at her, saying, You can say what you have to say now, I'll listen patiently, reply calmly, and then I'll decide on how you'll earn my forgiveness. Naruto sat as she looked at him, tears in her eyes, then practically fell on him in tears, apologizing. I apologize. None of it was intentional. As soon as you left, I understood how crucial you were to my life, and I never hated you or wanted you to stop speaking to me. The only person who has ever given me praise and made an overt attempt to win my love or even my attention when I treated you like trash is you. All stop at nothing to regain your friendship and trust. Sakura sat back, giving Naruto room to breathe, and he got up. Name your price. Are you willing to give anything? All I have to do is forgive you in exchange for anything I want from you. After Sakura nodded, Naruto reached into his GI and produced his tanto, saying, your left hand. He then dropped the tanto beside her. She reached for the knife with unsteady hands, carefully removed the wooden handled blade from its wooden sheath, placed her left hand on the grass, and carefully placed the blade on her wrist. Naruto knelt down and watched her arm, carefully noting the tensing of the muscles in her right arm and wrist. In an instant, he grabbed her right hand, twisted it, breaking it while disarming her, and she let out a painful scream. You were being honest. I've changed my mind, so I'll violate your rights instead, and you'll have to wait until I approach you and offer my forgiveness. But don't worry, it won't be long. You have my trust now, and I know you would go to any lengths to earn it. I'll let you keep your hand because of that. Naruto took his tanto and tucked it into his GI, leaving Sakura to tend to her broken wrist while Ino stared in shock, still trying to process everything. A tiny red line appeared on the back of her left wrist, indicating that Sakura had actually pressed the blade deeply enough into her skin to cut it. In an attempt to draw the attention of anyone who might recognize his face, Naruto wandered the streets until he felt a hand grab his shoulder and turned. Pardon me, sir, but am I acquainted with you? With a box of pieces in his left hand and a chessboard tucked under his arm, Nara Shikamaru posed the question. Naruto grinned his amiable Ronin smile and said, I can't say that you do, but maybe a game of chess will refresh my memory. The two exchanged well-considered moves while sitting at a nearby tea house. So, Ronin, what is your name? Shikamaru inquired. I'm called Tenchi Mitsurugi, fifth successor of the Mitsurugi no Tenchi Ryu. I understand, but that's not all. As an elite ninja, or Junin, I have access to specific files. I just came across this report about a former ninja in our village. For the sake of our community, we'll call him Uchiha Sasuke, even though that's not his real name. According to the report, he was classified as a B-class missing ninja a year and a half ago for knowing our secret jutsu here in an attempt to get his paycheck, and Anbu pursued him. According to the rumors, he was training under Tenchi Mitsurugi IV, a samurai, and had blonde hair and 4 scars on his left cheek. Are you the Uchiha Sasuke I mentioned? You fit this description. After Shikamaru had dissected him, Naruto grinned. Yes, Shikamaru. I am the Uchiha Sasuke you speak of. However, until my arrival is official, I am to be Tenchi Mitsurugi V. They continued playing chess, sipping tea, and conversing, and Shikamaru complied, saying, It's nice to have you back, Mitsurugi. So I always assumed that kind of investigation would be too much work for you. Shikamaru laughed as Naruto asked. Shikamaru took another piece, then called checkmate, saying, You're good, Mitsurugi. Nobody other than my dad has ever come close to beating me. Well, normally yes, but due to a certain number of events, I'm left without a good friend and my old habits. After paying for the tea, Naruto stood up and said, Let's turn in this missing Enin then. Shikamaru made a convincing arrest and used a body flicker jutsu to take him to the Hokage's office. Another move and I would have. Naruto pointed to the piece that was about to take his last protective layer, putting him in checkmate from his last remaining line of offense. Who is this? Shikamaru. Tsunade inquired. Tenchi Mitsurugi, the 5th successor, is his name. As you are aware, there were only 4 before 2 years ago. Shikamaru enjoyed teasing. Tsunade paused before recognizing the person. Naruto. Naruto felt the bone-crushing embrace after Shikamaru released his handcuffs. Tsunade didn't even hear Naruto's sarcastic remark. Well, I'm not the Buddha. Shikamaru understood the reference and laughed. I take it you're here to stay? How are you going to earn a living? I will benefit from 2 things in this situation. My father's will comes first. Whatever was left to me, I want to claim it second. I'd like to become a Hitokari, Konoha's special assassin. I can get the will for you right away. She proceeded to her desk and removed a box, which was roughly 2 feet long and 6 inches thick. She said, The seal on the front can only be opened by you. Naruto opened the box to reveal 3 scrolls side by side, the middle one addressed to him. To Uzumaki Naruto, my son, if you are reading this, Naruto, it indicates that someone has located it and given it to you. Although it was necessary, I wish I hadn't had to seal the Kyuubi into you. I expected the villagers to treat you like a hero and with respect, but I couldn't ask any other parents to have their child carry your burden. Two of my favorite techniques, the Hiraishin and the Rasengan, are contained in the other two scrolls. The key to your mansion is at the end of this scroll. You will have a 10-room house and 3.5 acres of land, but you will undoubtedly need to clean up. Although I apologize, I'm also proud of you, Naruto. You're destined for greatness. Naruto shed tears as he said, I love you, my son. His father had given him everything he had fought for. Naruto stood in front of the mansion, which, like most clan compounds, had a concrete wall around it and a single, enormous house in the center. The gates were straightforward and made of wood on the outside of the wall, but they were sealed to make them more durable than solid stone on the inside. He entered the walls and spoke 2 words. I'm home. He then proceeded to clean the entire house, including the rooms, tiles, boards, and other items, using a dozen bunshin. After examining the box in the master bedroom, which contained the seal for the Namikaze bank account, he made the decision to visit the bank the following day. Since the seal had confirmed Naruto's status as a Namikaze when he arrived, anyone who wasn't recognized as a member of a particular clan or their spouse would be instantly killed by all ninja bank seals. Well, it looks like you have, Mr. Namikaze. Oh my god, the bank teller's mouth fell open. That much, huh? I see. Leaning over the desk, Naruto examined the computer, certain that he had never seen so many zeros arranged in such a manner. Ryu is 50 trillion. Naruto smiled and said, I'm loaded. How much do you think it will cost me to furnish my house? The last time the Hyuga refurnished, they spent around 1 million Ryu for basic effects. Naruto stated, so I'll be drawing out about 10 million. He wanted to ensure that he had all the effects he would need to survive. When he got to the house, he discovered that all of the furniture, futons, his 4-poster, the TV, his new training equipment, dishes, and food were all neatly put away. He had divided the money among several dozen clones, had them all gather various items, and had them all return. His busybodying was interrupted by a knock at the door, and when he opened it, he saw Kakashi standing there. I've heard that you inherited everything that sensei owned, Naruto. It's a nice place you have here. Kakashi gazed around the enormous house while conversing with Naruto. Yeah, now I just need to find someone to live here with me. Well, I was here to inform you that your test is to be tomorrow at noon, Kakashi responded. All right, thanks. Would you like to go out to dinner? I still have roughly 10,000 Ryu left over after withdrawing too much money to purchase all of this. All right, regular ramen? Kakashi said, and Naruto gave a nod. Ayame saw the strange Ronin conversing with Kakashi at the ramen bar once more. So, Kakashi, you've also met Tenchi? Ayame inquired, and Kakashi appeared perplexed. Do you mean Naruto? Kakashi inquired, and Ayame's face brightened when she recognized the man. Their former best customer had brought back a completely different one. I'll have 5 bowls, 2 miso, 1 chicken, 1 pork, and 1 shrimp, Naruto replied. Ayame returned and gave her father the order, and he started making them right away. So Naruto, how was training with Tenchi Mitsurugi? Kakashi said, I guess I'll have a bowl of miso. I learned some crazy moves and had a great time. Naturally, I can't use them in tomorrow's test or I'll eliminate every ninja I'm up against. I hope it's a lot because I want to battle a lot of people, including strong ones. Guy, Lee, Hayate Gecko, and I will all be there tomorrow. Sakura was supposed to take the test, but she showed up at Tsunade's office with a broken wrist, so she is not going. Hyuga Neji will also be there. It's a bunch of Anbu. Aside from that, what is a bunch of people? After discussing whether 20 or 50 would be preferable, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and I ultimately chose 35. Do you think you can handle the 40 ninja you will be facing tomorrow? With his bowl now in front of him, Kakashi posed the question. Yeah, the problem is that all of the moves I know are to kill, and I don't think killing 35 Anbu is a good idea, and I don't imagine the rest of you guys would be too happy dead either. Remember, fighting with the intent to kill is the shinobi way, even in sparring, Kakashi replied. Though please don't kill me, I have a date with Anko tomorrow night. The insane woman from the Chunin tests. I always assumed you would choose a more laid-back partner. Icha Paradise isn't just good literature, which is why I read it. Anko is the only woman in the entire village who reads it, and I have ideas. I became enamored after witnessing her read it once. That book is filthy, that's why, it would be unwise for any woman to read, Naruto yelled. All right, Jiraiya is skilled at penning obscene novels. Anko is able to value it. That's because she's totally insane. After they finished their dinner and went their separate ways, Kakashi said, that is true. Waking the next day, the samurai dressed in his usual attire, swords at his waist, in both of his arms were sealed a different weapon. When he arrived at the training field, it was empty. This was understandable as it was 6 AM and most ninja didn't wake up until 8 or so. Naruto made exactly 40 clones of himself, each with spear and bow as well as a sword. Naruto stood facing 40 enemies, each with equal skill to him. He moved his thoughts from his mind. You think, you die. That's how it is in combat. Unless you're a Nara, he breathed slowly, turning clockwise, slashing a clone's belly open. He then cut another, each falling as the one before it had. He had killed 40 clones with his sword alone. Now it was time for his spear. When he unsealed his spear, he made another 40, dispatching them even more quickly than those with the sword. Finally, Naruto decided to have a 100-a-side war with his clones. When he had his clones made, they were in lines, archers at the rear, spearmen brought up the front lines with the swordsmen in the rear lines. Naruto had his spear in hand, ready to charge when the lines clashed. Naruto threw his spear into the line, following directly behind it as it landed in the middle of his enemy clone army. He drew his sword and attacked, pulling his spear from the ground and using it one-handed when he finished. Almost the whole testing force was watching, applauding him. All right, Naruto, it's time to put you to the true test. 3 rules apply. You must first defeat every opponent in a single or multiple battle. Second, you have to complete it in the allotted time. And third, you have to arrive with the intention of killing, Tsunade clarified. I got it. However, how many of them am I able to, actually, murder? Try not to kill our own forces, Naruto. The third rule is contradictory. I can either kill them or I can't, Naruto clarified. I'm just not wired that way anymore, so I can't come with intent to kill and not kill. When Tsunade gave the order to begin, Naruto stood as nearly all of the ninjas spread out, heading for their individual hiding places, while Rock Lee stood there, adopting his fighting stance. Still, if you can avoid it, don't kill any of the ninja, Naruto nodded. So, it's just the 2 of us? After settling into his unarmed fighting stance, Naruto asked. Then let's go. Lee charged forward, but Naruto dodged the kick, came up behind the ninja, looped his arm under one of Lee's, and threw him a jujitsu shoulder throw before launching an axe kick at him. Lee blocked the kick with his arms and pulled Naruto's leg out from under him with his other leg. Naruto caught himself on his hands and used them to stand up before continuing his attack on the ninja. When Maeda Guy launched an attack from behind, Naruto felt it, ducked, turned, and slashed out with his sword, but it missed its mark. You see, I expected you'd not want me to kill you all, so I got some swords without edges. He then attacked both at once, holding them back, and then, with a yell, launched a Itachi no Kasai at Guy, breaking it with a blunt wave instead of a razor-sharp blast from the trees. As expected, a formation of Anbu emerged from the trees, and Naruto stood in the open field, sheathing his sword, unwrapped his bow, fired once, and then sealed it away, taking out his spear and planting the second's butt into his chest, knocking him out. The third charged at Naruto with his sword, and Naruto batted it aside with the point and took the legs from the man, bringing his own foot slamming down on his throat. How is he able to do this? Sakura and Shizune both pondered as Tsunade asked. I think the training he's received gives him speed and endurance beyond what we could ever imagine, Shizune stated. Sakura rubbed her fractured wrist and added, not to mention power. Neji decided it was his turn to fight after Naruto had easily defeated 20 of the Anbu, Lee, and Guy. However, he wasn't alone. 3 other ninja arrived, all 4 of them in formation, prepared to fight. Naruto grinned and put his spear away. You believe your eyes can follow my movements, Neji? The 3 Anbu stood with their swords out, and Naruto said, come now, those aren't going to help you. Naruto disappeared, taking a second sword with him. Not fair, they can use their real swords, but I can't. Naruto felt the edge of the blade, and another Anbu fell as Naruto gathered another blade. How are things going for you? With no assistance from his eyes, Neji asked. Naruto took another Anbu and demonstrated, well, it's simple, I crouch a little, and jump. Then use a Batu Jutsu, and jump again, and I'm back. That can't possibly be pure speed, Neji cried out. When I initially saw it, I said that, but that's what happens when you're 30 times heavier than normal for 2 years. Everyone's mouths fell open. What? Heavier than usual by 30 times? You would have been crushed, cried Neji. The hard way or easy, Neji? Naruto said, well, Mitsurugi said there were 2 15 times gravity seals on me, and my Bakken was 10 times. Hard way then. Neji reassumed his fighting stance and charged, and in a flash of steel, Neji crumpled to the ground. Kakashi, though he couldn't tell which he was, stepped out with the remaining Anbu forces, and Naruto decided to attack anyhow. When one Anbu blocked his attack, he knew it had to be Kakashi, and when the second attacked while he was occupied, He thrust his sword into the Anbu, blocking his leg as it attempted to kick him. Whether it was a dull edge or not, the point was still sharp, and it parted flesh. Naruto turned the blade on his former teacher, but it was blocked. He then drew his wakizashi, and with his Nitoryu, he attacked all 9 remaining Black Ops ninja. When the numbers came down to him and Kakashi, he sheathed his swords and unsealed his spear. "You're sacrificing range for speed?" From behind his wolf mask, Kakashi posed the question. "No, both are being added to." Naruto thrust in, feeling his spear dash aside as he had anticipated. "You see, my first kill was using a weapon similar to a spear, and Shisho thinks that it has something to do with my natural skill with it." Kakashi attempted to parry, but Naruto used the momentum to knock his legs out from under him with the hard wooden shaft, then brought it down, almost hitting him again, but Kakashi brought up his metal coat to block it. The metal plate collapsing under the strain, but protecting his arm and body, Naruto pulled back, allowing Kakashi to stand, and he attacked ruthlessly, knocking his blows aside each time until he dropped the spear, drew his sword, blocked Kakashi's, and delivered the killing blow with his wakizashi. "Well done, Naruto," Kakashi remarked. "You've defeated nearly every one of our best to within an inch of their lives," and Naruto grinned. "I was hoping I'd get to use the Tachi no Kasai more than once." "What is that?" "This," Kakashi whistled softly as Naruto turned and drew his sword, causing a wave of chakra to shoot forth and split a tree in 2. According to Kakashi, "That's a nifty trick there. You should go talk to the Tsunade-sama to find out what kind of missions you're allowed to do. But you can do anything you want, I'm sure of it." Kakashi put his sword away. Naruto approached the Hokage and smiled. Naruto turned to face his old teammate and said, "Hey Tsunade, Shizune, Haruno." Sakura recalled what Naruto had said. "Hello Na, Tenchi. So, do I pass? When would you like to begin?" Tsunade looked around at the extent of the adolescent samurai's damage. "What are you thinking of?" Naruto smiled. After starting his duties almost a month ago, Naruto was already on his 10th long-term assassination, this time to kill a Yakuza leader in the capital of the Land of Fire. At the moment, Naruto was sitting in a bar, conversing with a man who claimed to have some information regarding the leader's whereabouts. "I doubt a single swordsman could get past all of the guards in the mansion on the west end of town where he resides." The man took a sip of his sake and remarked, "Maybe if you were a ninja, you could, so I'd be careful." Naruto placed the money on the table and said, "Thanks, I'll cover your bill." There were 2 guards on either side of the gate when he discovered the mansion. Naruto put on his Ronin smile and said, "Hello, I'd like to speak with the boss please." "What do you want with the boss?" "A samurai. I need to ask for protection. You see, there's a powerful man after me, and it's rumored that he has friends, ninja friends." Naruto told the truth. "However, you will have to leave your swords here. House rule." Naruto turned in his swords and entered the house, where he was escorted by a guard. "They think they got my real blades," Naruto said, severing the man's throat with his tanto before removing a small scroll and revealing a pair of swords. "I'm sorry, but for the sake of my mission, you must die," Naruto said. "Those were just my training swords." After putting the blades in his belt, he proceeded down the hall and opened the door to reveal a man seated at a desk. "What on earth are you?" the leader of the Yakuza yelled. "I bear no personal grudge against you, but for your crimes against this nation you must die." Naruto raised his blade. "Watchmen. They'll not be coming. I killed them." Naruto quickly severed the man's head, taking out his eye and placing it in a scroll. 1. The Hitokari turned around and left calmly, eliminating all of the Yakuza who dared to stand in his way. When he was finally outside, he turned to the guards and said, "My swords please." "Fuck you." One pulled out his sword and attempted to attack in poor form, but Naruto simply sidestepped and hit the man with a palm strike instead. "I'll ask nicely once more, my swords please. Did you not tell us that you were going to kill our boss?" Another drew a tanto and asked. "Yes, I did." He counterattacked by breaking the man's wrist and elbow, then took the tanto and put it in the man's throat. "Now, please return my swords, they're pretty costly." The 4th guard glanced at Naruto after the next attack, only to be rewarded with a blade that cut him from shoulder to opposite thigh. "Go for the fucking swords." He gave the blades to him. "The only intelligent person is you." Thank you. As he turned to go, he noticed a number of city guards and produced a Hite 8 plate. "It's okay, Konoha business," he said. With a salute, one of the guards said, "Sorry sir, we thought it was another Yakuza war." "That's fine, please clean this up though, it's quite a mess inside." "Yes, sir." The guard gestured for the others to start tidying up. The Hitokari changed into a new outfit, putting away his old one for washing when he got home, and then fell asleep after Naruto arrived at the inn where he was staying and cleaned his hands, face, and any other areas where blood had splattered. Naruto got up early the following day, checked out, and left for Konoha, where he went directly to the Hokage and gave her the scroll. I killed 35 of the other Yakuza, only 5 survived. Okay, you can choose to take another mission or you can take some leave. Tsunade nodded and started perusing the books, saying, I'll take another. It is thought that a lord in a nearby nation is disclosing important details about ninja villages. There won't be many guards, but since he was once a ninja, he probably has a lot of jutsu. Tsunade gave him the mission outline and said, 100,000 ryu. Naruto turned and bowed, saying, okay, I'll take it immediately. The following day, he departed. He found the man living in a nearby forest cottage after asking around for him when he got to the small village. If I may ask, are you Ikatsu Arima? Yes, Naruto hurried to the man and slashed him across the chest with his blade, saying, then I apologize, but for your crimes against Konoha you must die. So they are now hiring samurai. But you're no ordinary samurai, are you? The man asked, glancing at him. Karyu Enden no Jutsu, Kaden said. He made hand seals. Naruto ducked as the man spit out a huge flaming dragon. But he was confronted by another fire jutsu. He split the jutsu with Itachi no Kasai and then attacked, but the man ducked. You are correct to believe that I am not your typical samurai. In order to support himself as a long-range archer, Naruto created a shadow clone. I am Tenchi Mitsurugi, 5th successor to the Mitsurugi no Tenchi Ryu. With his eyes closed, the man grinned and said, I see. He created more seals and launched a flurry of strong jutsu attacks, which Naruto managed to avoid until he finally found his opening and sliced the man across the base of his spine. It appears that your jutsu was unable to capture me. Naruto put his sword through the man's throat, removed the eye from the body, and cremated the body. The Hitokuri then dispelled the one clone he had created, pointing out that it had not really helped him. Now for your crimes you must pay. He gave the scroll with the eye over when he got back to Konoha. Naruto, you really should take some time off. You've been killing for nearly a month straight. I'm all right. Tsunade-sama. Tsunade glanced at him and asked, what's my next mission? Naruto sighed, realizing that he would not win this. You're required to take at least a week's leave. All right. After saying, if you need me, you know where to find me, Naruto turned and left the office. He strolled calmly to the ramen bar, where he discovered Sakura and her friend Ino sitting and chatting. He noticed that not much had changed in Konoha. The villagers didn't even recognize him, but they hadn't been treating him badly since he'd turned into a ninja. Sakura saw him and said, hi. Naruto sat down, ordered his bowl, and said, hi. So, you said it wouldn't be long. It's been a month. How is your wrist healing? I did say it wouldn't be long. Sakura questioned him about the wrist and replied, better than it would if I weren't a medic trained by Tsunade Shisho. I've always wondered if a doctor can get rid of scars and birthmarks. Naruto inquired. He had been curious about it for a while. That kind of thing is allegedly possible with jutsu. Only the best medical professionals can use it. I understand. Is there any chance you could get rid of the scar on my left cheek? Sakura appeared quite dejected as she said, I can't do the jutsu. Naruto touched the scar and said, oh well, it was worth a try. I guess I'll be stuck with these scars forever. Ino interrupted, saying, so, I heard you're rich. Naruto. Naruto accepted his food gratefully and said, that's true, but I think having what was rightfully mine withheld from me for 15 years earns you that, especially under my circumstances, supposed to be treated a hero, and I can't even access my clan's house. Naruto ate his food with a rather irate expression on his face. You weren't even permitted to use your own property, then? Startled, Ino said. Naruto continued eating, saying, that's what I just said. It's a wonder you didn't kill us all. Even before you left you were strong, but now. It's like you're on a different level than the rest of us, Sakura replied. Naruto continued, that's because I am. Only Kakashi had even approached thus far, and he wasn't utilizing his Sharingan. The Sannin might be outmatched by Kakashi. He is that powerful. You're saying Kakashi is that powerful? When he put me to the test, he was holding back more than his eye. He is just as strong as me, so I'm sure he could have kept up with me, albeit not in speed. That's unbelievable. That lazy ass can't be that good. Observe Shikamaru and keep in mind that at 12, Kakashi was Junin. Some powerful people are like Kakashi and Shikamaru. Some are like Itachi and myself, using their power to use it. Naruto used Itachi's name because it was appropriate to place it there. He was Anbu captain by 14. He's that strong. He's lazy because he can be. So you're implying that you'll slaughter a whole clan? Ino uttered those words. Who would be there to stop me if I made the decision? Leaning back, Naruto grinned and remarked, but I won't, it would be a terrible thing to do. So, what precisely do you do for a living? Did Ino ask? I murder the girls. He was with shuddered when Naruto said, I am sent out to kill people, and anyone who gets in the way. Is that all? That's it? He put his money on the counter, finished his meal, and got up. After returning home and practicing alone, Naruto sensed someone at the gate and went to open it, only to be startled to see Sakura. With threatening tears at the corners of her eyes, Sakura said, Naruto, I can't stand this. I can't have one of my last precious people not speaking to me on a personal basis. Naruto invited her to enter the gates, and she immediately fell to her knees. Please Naruto. Naruto looked down. Is that what you want? I told you that I would kill you if you called me that name. Naruto placed his sword close to her throat. I'm not interested. When the rain started, Sakura was still on her knees and it came down quickly, soaking them both. Naruto stood there thinking quietly before sheathing his blade in a single motion. Kill me if you want, so long as you forgive me first. With tears threatening to spill from his eyes, he turned around and said, You must go now. Sakura remained motionless. Sakura said, still on her knees, Not until you do what you said you would. I will leave as soon as you do. Then, without warning, Naruto grabbed her by the shirt and slammed her against the wall with his wakizashi and a blade at her neck. Do it? She dared. The Haruno saw the expression in his eyes and knew she had made her mission. He didn't break the kiss or move. He just remained there, her against the wall, his lips against her. The pink-haired girl had not anticipated what happened next, though, as she felt a pair of warm lips on her own and tasted the passion on his lips. He sobbed, saying, I'm sorry, Sakura. She escorted him inside his home and escorted him to the couch, where she sat and consoled him while he sobbed. She put an arm around his shoulders and said, Naruto, you don't need to apologize, you never did. The sobs gradually slowed and eventually stopped. Naruto got up and held her hand, saying, We need to get some dry clothes, we're soaked. He led her upstairs to his room, where Sakura grabbed him and kissed him again before he could go to the closet. I see what you want. He took his swords off and put them on the rack on his dresser. Then he took off his gi, throwing it aside before he kissed her again. Clothes slowly moved from bodies to the floor as they crept toward the bed, and at last, Naruto had Sakura beneath him. She was still standing at the foot of his bed, and he laid on it. Are you sure you want this? She smiled at him and said, I'm the one who started it. Of course I'm sure. Naruto didn't need any more explanations and climbed onto the bed as well. A morning the following day, a mop of pink hair was spread out across Naruto's chest when he looked down after waking up with a weight on his chest. Kyuubi remarked, Didn't think you had it in you, kid. Naruto told the fox, Every single one of my teachers were perverts, so it only makes sense that some of it rubs off on me. Now what? Kyuubi inquired, though Naruto hated to admit it. Kakashi was smart to read those books because they would give him ideas that only a super pervert could ever come up with. I suppose that I'll ask her to be my girlfriend, see if she wants to move in here, maybe steal one of those books Kakashi reads for some ideas. Naruto sensed the fox's smirk and said, Talk to that Anko woman as well. I bet she has some tips to give you on lady pleasing. It's not a terrible idea to avoid waking the woman in his bed. Naruto carefully got out of bed, wrapped the cotton bandage around his waist up to his ribs, put on a new pair of hakama, and tucked the tanto into the bandage. Perhaps later, for now, I need some breakfast. The smell of bacon cooking roused Sakura, who got up and grabbed one of Naruto's yukata from his closet before going downstairs to see him preparing breakfast. He didn't even turn around to say, Morning. He also said, I see you've stolen some of my clothing. Naruto smirked slightly and brushed his long hair aside as she said softly, Last night was amazing. Our clothes from last night are still wet. She walked over and placed her hands on his shoulders and kissed him on the cheek. Naruto pointed to the tall pile of flapjacks and said, It was. I hope you like pancakes. They're one of my favorite foods that isn't ramen. I made bacon, sausage, and I'm working on eggs as well. Do you have any special requests? Sakura was unable to stop staring at the enormous breakfast with wide eyes. You created everything on your own? I had no idea you were a cook, Naruto grinned. I was able to because of Mitsurugi Shisho. The smirk turned into a full-fledged grin as Sakura laughed at him. He always said to make sure you can live with bad cooking, learn to cook well, or find someone to cook for your sorry ass if you can't do either of those. Mitsurugi has a humorous voice, so, is it a real name or one that he was given? Tenchi Mitsurugi IV is his true name. After learning the Ugi, I was considered deserving of the title of successor, so I can call myself that. Naruto poured the remaining bacon onto the plate and began cooking the eggs in a new skillet. How do you like him? Naruto inquired. Sakura sat at the table and watched Naruto patiently, saying, "Sunny side up please." Naruto thought it was odd that he was making eggs when only 3 days earlier he was killing, but he assumed it was to be expected given his current way of life. He finished the food for the two of them and promptly put the plate with her eggs and his on the table. They started eating when Sakura voiced her thoughts about the food. "This is excellent. I've never had anything better." After eating more, she discovered that Naruto had finished much earlier than she had. "What comes next, then?" "Tsunade is training you, but I came home by myself. You didn't bring me back. Shall we pursue Sasuke? Shall we pursue Orochimaru?" "What?" Naruto started to clear the table, saying, I don't know much about what Tsunade Shisho has planned." Sakura gave Naruto a worried look as he went into his room to finish dressing. "I'm going to go kill Sasuke. I'll do it even if that snake bastard kills me." "What makes you wish to murder Sasuke?" "That bastard had everything in the palm of his hand, which is why." Naruto glanced at the ceiling and then at the ninja seated on his couch before saying, and then he told me that I knew nothing about loss, nothing about loneliness. Me. The person who has spent his entire life alone." Naruto put his hand on his sword and said, "But now, I would have killed him if I could have back then, but I couldn't bring myself to do it." "Is it to exact revenge, then? You left just like he did, so you're no better than him?" "No, Sakura, I went out intending to acquire power in the proper manner through diligence and training. He wanted a platter of it brought to him. He went off to murder someone he would never have the chance to kill. I am confident that I can kill my target." "You still left for the same reasons as him. What makes you stand up for him? He almost took me out too. And he broke your heart." Naruto felt the anger edging closer to him despite his best efforts to suppress it. "Because even though he never asked for it, I already forgave him. I know he's going to change, and when he does I want to welcome him back." "You still have a thing for that Uchiha jerk?" Naruto felt his anger now, just behind his eyes, ready to cloud his vision with the shroud of red. "Get out." "Naruto, I leave." Sakura noticed Naruto's rage as he yelled. Sakura stood up, defying every alarm in her mind, and said, "No, I'm not leaving, because you're just assuming things. I don't still like him. I love you, Naruto, and I don't want you to go down that same path." "I'm not going down that route." Naruto sat down and said, "I need some time alone. I'm going to kill him without becoming like him. My presence here should prove that," he said, slowly reversing the red. "I take it you're meeting Tsunade?" Sakura nodded, then kissed him before getting her clothes, which were close enough to dry to wear, and said, "I'll come and find you when I've had my time to think." It had been almost 2 hours since he had asked her to leave, and Naruto was meditating. He was aware that he had almost lost his temper, but he was able to control it. When Sakura decided to return home after her meeting with Tsunade, she noticed smoke coming from the direction of her house from almost a mile away. She rushed as quickly as she could in the direction of the fire and was astounded by what she saw. The voice of a man sitting in front of Sakura's house said, "Hello Sakura. You know I haven't finished making payments on this house," she said, reaching back and taking her black leather gloves out of her pouch. "Hello Sasuke." Sakura lunged forward and attacked, almost hitting him, but Sasuke skillfully dodged and hit her in the stomach, knocking her back and taking the wind out of her. "I think you owe me some money." "No, I don't." Sasuke pulled out his chikudo, a white wooden handle with a single purple stripe down the middle. "You see, I've come here to kill you and that thrice damned Uzumaki, and I don't want you coming after me when I go to kill Itachi. Naruto is unstoppable. Even if you manage to kill me, I saw him effortlessly defeat Gekko Hayate, Maeda Guy, Rock Lee, 40 Anbu, and Kakashi." Sasuke arched an eyebrow. "Is that correct? I just finished killing Orochimaru and all of his experiments and guards, so I'll let you know. Except for the ones I chose to keep." Sakura was on top of him again, hammering into his face with the chakra-enforced fist, and Sasuke felt his body bounce off the dirt of Sakura's scorched backyard. He regained his footing and managed to bring up a kick to knock her away, but his vision was limited by the blood now running over his left eye. He held up his sword, leaping at her in a flash, but when he swung it, he was blocked by another sword. Naruto drew his sword to protect himself from the attacking blade and said, "Hello, Teme. Sakura here says you're strong enough to take out more than 40 Anbu alone. Let's see if it's true." Sasuke leapt away, but that was a mistake because a wave of Tachi no Kasai came right after. He had an easy time moving because he was built for speed. His body was wiry and thin, but strong. Naruto was built for power, but his training gave him an unmatched speed. He quickly reached his opponent, slashing across his chest, leaving a spray of red just behind his blade. Sasuke fell to his knee, and Naruto took his blade and jammed it through his left shoulder. Naruto withdrew the katana violently and said, "I'm going to let you live. Want to know why?" "Why?" Because I want you to try to match me in strength. Sasuke, you see, I just followed my instincts and didn't even use anything to maim you here. I want you to murder your brother. Then come try to murder me because I'll kill you then. Naruto wiped the blood off his blade with a cloth from his GI. Bastard. After Sakura managed to burn her right leg while pursuing Sasuke, Naruto turned away and helped her up, saying, "So I am, but that's irrelevant. Now you should leave soon. The Anbu are on their way, and I can't have you getting caught. They'll execute you, and that's not what I want. And if you kill your brother first, the Uchiha clan will be abolished from this world." They returned to the Namikaze mansion. "I had all my stuff in that house. I've got nothing left. I have more money than I'll ever need, so I'll get you new stuff regarding living arrangements. You are welcome to reside anywhere in the house if you so choose." "Thank you, Naruto. You've helped me so much, and yet you act like you've done nothing at all." That is the essence of being a samurai. Recalling what his teacher had taught him, Naruto reaffirmed, "Our true duty is to serve our lord and their citizens. We are not glory seekers." That's not what I've seen from my few experiences with samurai. True samurai were not what you were encountering. The day had ended much like the night before, and Naruto was completely unprepared for the guests that would arrive tomorrow. They were only men who practiced the art of the sword, not the arts of the mind and spirit. Naruto continued, explaining that true samurai were trained to use their minds and other weapons as tools just as much as their sword. A knock on Naruto's door woke him up, so he hurriedly put on a yukata and tucked his wakizashi into his belt. Upon opening the door, he discovered multiple Hyuga. "Uzumaki Naruto, we have orders to bring you to the Hokage. Tsunade-sama would send Anbu if she wanted me." The Hyuga noticed his hand resting on the handle of the short sword. "Now tell me what you were really sent for before my sword decides it wants to taste the blood of royalty." "We were sent to kidnap you, take you to the Hyuga compound for assassination." "Under whose direction?" Naruto glanced at the Hyuga, who said, "Under the orders of Hyuga Hiyashi and his council." "What's your name?" "Hyuga Yahiko, sir." "Thank you. When I get permission from the Hokage to slaughter your clansmen, if you have a wife and kids, take them into your room, and when you do, write your name on the door and I'll spare your family," Naruto replied. "That is insane. You'll die before you kill even 10 of the more than 200 Hyuga that live in the compound," remarked another Hyuga. "Want to demonstrate that?" "Didn't think so," Naruto said, "and no one stood up. If you don't leave now, you'll all die where you stand." Naruto shut his door, was relieved to learn that they had all fled, hurriedly got dressed, took his swords, and left Sakura a letter telling her where he was. He told Tsunade about his predicament in her office. "Naruto, that is absurd. What makes them want you dead?" "Probably because I've grown stronger than they like. Permit me to murder them all." "I'm not going to let you do that. Our forces would be crippled by that." "Then let me train a more qualified force to take their place. I can substitute samurai, who have all been personally trained by me. For the more than 200 Hyuga, the Anbu can then return to their special forces missions while they serve as the police force." "Naruto, you don't seem to understand that some of our strongest ninja come from that clan." "I know they do, and I can tell you that I plan to spare at least 3 more if one of them is married. 3 Hyuga cannot replenish our ranks." Tsunade examined his face and said, "No, but we have almost 1,000 ninja on duty, so even taking out a fifth of them won't cripple us so much that we can't function as a ninja village. On the other hand, I could kill the Hyuga and then remove from the village all the ninja who would agree to work with me. Sakura would definitely accompany me, and I might even be able to get Kakashi. Those 2 are presumably 2 of the strongest ninjas in the village, and that would seriously impair your forces." Naruto liked playing verbal chess with Tsunade. I also read Kakashi's reports, and he has completed almost 200 missions in the last 600 days, averaging 3 days per mission. Tsunade started writing the warrant right away, and Naruto bowed before leaving. "Okay, do what you want, but I want to issue an official warrant first, or else the council members will have my head for this." Sakura had just woken up at his house to discover that Naruto had returned and taken out the note she was meant to find. "Where did you go at such an early hour?" Sakura inquired. "I visited Tsunade's workplace." Sakura's eyes snapped open. "I'm going to destroy the Hyuga clan in about 10 days. "What are you?" "I was supposed to be abducted this morning and brought to their compound to be killed. One of their own, who obviously didn't want to do it, gave me the information. I threatened to kill the entire clan, excluding him, his wife and kids, and possibly Neji and Hinata." "I see. Please allow me to assist you." "No, I can do it on my own. Besides, I need you to do something for me, and I don't want you to kill your own friends. I would like you to locate the names of 250 minor clans in all of the trainee records for this year's academy. Acceptance only. Minor clans with origins no older than the Second Great Shinobi War are acceptable to me." "Why? Naruto picked 50 names because he wanted the trainees to live on the grounds and his grounds could easily house 50 people. I'm going to begin training a samurai unit for Konoha. I want 50 names before next week if it's possible. A week goes by while searching the city for something to do. Naruto came across a person he hadn't seen in a long time. Naruto said, "Neji, come walk with me. I have some things to tell you." The Hyuga complied, and after a short walk, Naruto resumed his speech, saying, "Your clansmen are trying to kill me, Neji." "Why?" Startled, the Hyuga inquired. "Because they probably believe that I am too strong. I want you to respond to an important question I'm going to ask you." "What is it?" Neji heard something completely different from what he had anticipated. "Will you become the head of the Hyuga when they fall?" "What?" "I'm going to kill the Hyuga clan save for a few members, and I want you and the members I allow to live restart the clan, and under your rule I want you to lead them the way they're supposed to go." "You intend to murder every member of the Hyuga clan?" "Except you, Hinata, maybe her little sister, and Hyuga Yahiko. This includes any kids or wife he has." "I assume he told you about the Hyuga. He's an honest man with a wife and 3 children." "Yes, and because of it I want to save him. A good man shouldn't die for a bad man's crimes." "Then I'll do it. I assume you'd prefer that I keep it a secret." "Yes," Naruto was thinking. "Say Neji, I think I can remove that caged bird seal on your head." "Are you able to?" Naruto guided the Hyuga to his home, saying, "I was taught the art of sealing, and if its construction is proper then I can remove it." Naruto searched through numerous books at the house in search of the caged bird seal. Naruto went through the hand seals and said, "Here it is. Yep, I can take it off. Sealing art. Unseal." Naruto had Neji take off his headband in order to remove the seal. Neji could sense how much chakra Naruto had used to create the seal, and if the quantity of hand seals was any indication, Naruto had learned a lot. Naruto placed his hand on Neji's forehead. Neji bowed and said, "Naruto, I'm indebted to you." "No, all you have to do is seize control of your clan as his friend departed." Naruto bowed and said, "Lead them right. In high places, you're learning how to make friends." Kyuubi said to his prison, "Good. It helps that I knocked some sense into him a few years ago." The Hyuga compound. A member of the main house called to Neji as he entered the compound, his headband fastened over his now clean forehead. "You must bring me a specific text from the library. Please take action right now." No, the main house member attempted to use the caged bird seal on Neji, but it failed, so the main house Hyuga yelled at him. "I have more important things to do," Neji said. "What's causing the caged bird seal to malfunction?" "Because my friend Namikaze Naruto removed it. That's getting in the way of clan business." The man's face was now a mask of shock as Neji said, "So is the assassination attempt on him. Be grateful that he didn't have Tsunade-sama imprison you. Though rumor has it he'll be coming to have a talk with the council members in a few days. That's what he told me anyway." Neji grinned and turned to leave. He drew Hinata aside as soon as he located her. "Hinata, we need to leave." "Why?" The solemn tone of Neji's voice alarmed Hinata. "I can't tell you here. Just get your equipment packed like you're going on a mission. I've got to go speak to Tsunade-sama to get a false mission, then I'll tell you once we're gone." At the gate, Neji noticed that Yahiko was on guard duty and proceeded to show it to his uncle. Fortunately, the Hyuga council member had not yet spoken to him, so he was allowed to leave safely. As he passed by, Neji said, "Naruto is supposed to be visiting in 4 days. Be prepared." Yahiko nodded. Neji started to explain after they had left the village on their mission and were out of earshot. "Naruto is going to massacre the clan. Hinata, he will go to the compound in 3 days and murder them all because they attempted to kidnap and kill him." Hinata's expression darkened as she said, "So that's why we're not there." Her entire family was to be killed, and by the person she looked up to. "Yes, he would make a good ally. It's a shame they got on his bad side. However, he wants to save us, and I'm supposed to lead the new Hyuga clan." Hinata gave him a proud look. "However, a clan leader ought to be married, right?" Hinata inquired. Neji then understood that he would have 2 options within his clan in the event of the massacre. Hinata and Yahiko's daughter, who was roughly their age. "Yes, but we'll have to work around that until I take a wife." Namikaze Mansion. Sakura entered the gate with a folder full of files, and Naruto, who had completed his personal training, had always practiced against clones because they would reveal weaknesses in his own form. "I located more than 300 applicants who all met your requirements. What is the reason behind your desire to establish a samurai unit?" "We have had a shortage of qualified ninja to go on high-class missions. This will take care of that problem, plus we'll have an upper hand in war." Naruto spent the majority of the remainder of the day reviewing the files Sakura had brought him. Sakura nodded quickly in understanding as Naruto explained his reasoning. Day of the Hyuga slaughter. 3 days later, after waking up, getting dressed, and grabbing his swords, Naruto went to his shelf and removed a scroll that contained a suit of metal armor designed to withstand chakra. The armor was red in color, and the helmet had a fixture on top that many would describe as a halo. The armor felt surprisingly light when he put it on. He had never worn armor before, but he reasoned that it would be helpful. Naruto then headed toward the Hyuga compound. When the man in red armor approached the front gate, the guard was taken aback and attempted to warn Naruto from a distance of around 5 meters. "You will not pass." He held out the spear, which Naruto cut away and killed the guard. He then called forth clones to stand on the mansion's walls, and they drew their bows. He then called forth another platoon of clones, almost 30 in number, to follow him inside armed with swords and spears. The army of blonde samurai broke down the gates, and the Hyuga slaughter started. Finally, he arrived at the council room, which was at the far back of the compound and heavily guarded. The Hyuga who hadn't been murdered yet either fought or ran for their lives, but in either case, they were all killed, every man, woman, and child. Naruto vowed he wouldn't abandon survivors because he understood the loneliness and couldn't let anyone else experience it. Inside the thick walls, the Hyuga officials heard the guards' screams, and the fear was almost palpable. Eventually, the doors gave way under a tremendous kick, and they saw the red-armored samurai. "Hello Hiyashi, I must say I'm disappointed," Naruto said as he took off the mask portion of his headgear. "I expected the great Hyuga clan to put up more of a fight. 130 have already fallen to my blade. And I suppose there's maybe 10 more here. I'll have to go look for the rest." "How come you're acting like this, demon?" When a council member yelled, Naruto approached him and placed his wakizashi against the man's throat. "For this reason, you cannot even respect me as a fellow Konoha prince." He slit the man's throat and turned to face another. "But no, instead you threw your lot in with those bigots. I remember my father saying that I was to be treated as a hero, not a piece of trash. If you corrupt Hyuga were to have acted with real honor, you would have saved me every time I took a beating, not joined it," he said. Another councilman was knocked down by Naruto. "Please," one pleaded, "if you just spare us, we'll give you anything. The issue is that you conceal yourself behind your clan name, assuming that everyone will be afraid of the formidable Hyuga. However, I have never experienced fear, so I have come to reveal the Byakugan's vulnerability." The user. A third was killed by Naruto. "Cease." Hiyashi rushed Naruto, his Juken useless against the chakra-warding armor he wore, and yelled, adopting a Juken stance, "I'll not stand idly by and have my clansmen slaughtered." Naruto kicked Hiyashi in the left knee, saying, "You're a funny man, Hiyashi. You treat your own daughter so dishonorably and then pretend that your family is important to you. The way she spoke to me when we were young told me that it kills her inside." Hiyashi's cries of agony only got worse when the other knee broke, and he eventually fell on his back with both knees broken. "Then take my life. I am unable to even protect my clan, but know that I never saw you as a demon. I simply could not act on my wishes to take you in. It is against our clan's laws. And I would have been banished." Hiyashi hid his face in shame. After dropping his tanto in front of the seppuku perpetrator, Naruto turned to face the other council members and said, "Then you will have an honorable death. You will suffer the most dishonorable deaths. I will make you suffer, scream in pain, and die slowly for your animosity." The Hyuga men screamed in agony as Naruto sliced them with swift, shallow strokes of his blade, then continued his methodical killing of Konoha's biggest clan. After it was over, he located Yahiko, let him leave, set fire to the compound, and left for home. When Sakura arrived at the gates, she saw her boyfriend covered in the blood of both guilty and innocent men. After entering his room, Naruto took off his armor, changed into fresh clothes, and took a shower. That night had been a horrible nightmare for him. He could see the faces of every Hyuga staring at him, all of them waiting for him to enter their world so they could repeatedly tear him to pieces. He had never experienced such a terror, and he woke up in a cold sweat and terror. The Kyuubi frequently said the obvious, "The murder is getting to you, boy." After carefully getting out of bed and putting on his yukata, Naruto proceeded to the room he had designated as his meditation space, saying, "I know that, I need to find a way to make this pass. It was always beneficial." His meditation was interrupted by a knock on the door. He discovered 2 Anbu at the door when he answered it. "Namikaze Naruto, you are under arrest for the murder of the Hyuga clan." With a close examination of the Anbu, Naruto said, "No, I had a warrant from Tsunade herself." Naruto showed them the warrant before entering. "You're from the Root group, aren't you? Danzo's been trying to get rid of me for a while now, so you should leave now. I don't want blood on my doorstep." That Danzo lied to us. He said that Naruto had gone berserk and killed them all. Not that it was just like the Uchiha massacre, that it was warranted by the Hokage. We need to go talk to Tsunade-sama. The Anbu replied to his companion. Enraged, Tsunade stormed into her advisor Danzo's office. Danzo, what is the meaning of this? She hurled the Anbu's sworn statements after learning of his deceit. Danzo started to say, I was trying to clean filth of the STR, but stopped when a slap echoed through the office. He is no filth. You know yourself, he is royalty in this village, and he is trying to preserve healthy growth of the 3 remaining royal clans of Konoha. Tsunade took a breath. The Uchiha has failed altogether, unless we can get Itachi back into the village, and even then it will be generations before it returns to its former glory. She handed him the warrant. The same of the Hyuga. They were soon to collapse. Even branch members treated him as trash. He saved enough members that they can restore the clan in time. The Namikaze was thought dead for 15 years, but it's come back. Danzo paused, obviously considering what he had done, and asked, You're saying the boy is helping the village flourish? Danzo had truly meant to say, Then I will have to apologize to Naruto myself. 2 members of the main Anbu group appeared, flanking him and grabbing him by the shoulders. Sorry Danzo. I can't risk you being near him. I'm placing you under arrest for breaking Sarutobi's law of secrecy. Tsunade, I implore you to think twice, the Anbu said as they led Danzo away. Tsunade followed the Anbu until they took him to the execution site. The law was, after all, punishable by death, and in her brief time there, Danzo had broken it several dozen times. No, it's been unenforced for too long. I am going to make it known. As for Naruto, that boy is highly intelligent. I may just make him my new advisor. Namikaze Mansion Neji and the other Hyuga clan members had come to express their gratitude to Naruto directly for sparing them. They all deserved it, but it was still a commendable deed. Startled to see the rest of the Hyuga clan at his door, Naruto answered it in his morning yukata. Neji, who was now the head of the Hyuga clan, laughed and responded on their behalf, To what do I owe the honor of the whole Hyuga clan visiting me this morning? We've come to thank you Naruto, you saved us all, and you removed the caged bird seal from me. Neji gave a bow, then Yahiko spoke. You've allowed our clan to flourish without the oppressive laws. My daughter can now spend time with her boyfriend without having to sneak around. Yahiko and his entire family gave a bow. Hinata merely bowed. Thank you Naruto-kun. Naruto gave him a very suggestive look, and Neji blushed. You have nothing to thank me for. I was doing what I thought right. You were the only ones whom I couldn't see the hatred pouring off of now. Neji, I've seen the way you look at Tenten. I don't know what you're talking about. All of the clan members flushed when the person said, I think you do, and I've heard her talking about you. I say go after her, can't revive your clan on your own after all. While grinning, Naruto opened the door and said, Well, I don't know how long it will take for them to clean up your compound, so you're free to stay here until they do. Yahiko had undoubtedly heard of the religion he practiced when he said, You are like the Buddha himself Naruto. Naruto's smile widened as he asked, You are familiar with the Buddha's teachings? I have read small amounts in the clan library. The other members of Hyuga were completely unaware of what they were discussing. I have many books and scrolls of his teachings. So many people have rewritten his teachings or simply focused on 1 or 2, it is amazing. You are free to read any of them if you please. Taka, Yahiko's wife, bent down to whisper in Neji's ear. Neji nodded sympathetically as the two went on to discuss how Yahiko is very fond of ancient religions. He studies theology in his spare time. Around this time, Sakura entered fully clothed. Naruto explained the situation and nodded, saying, I see we have company. At this moment, there was a knock. Naruto said, Hello Tsunade. I had Danzo killed. He broke Sarutobi's law of secrecy, and I was fed up with it when I got the reports from his men about his failed kidnapping attempt. Naruto then made the connection between the two, saying, I see, that makes you short of an advisor then, and you think I'd make a good political advisor. That would also give the village a well-rounded council, 1 civilian, Homura, myself as a ninja, and you as the leader of the future samurai clan. It does make sense, but your council meetings will be limited when I continue taking missions. I didn't meet with them a whole lot anyway, and besides Jiraiya is also a brilliant man, so he may be able to help in your absence. Naruto invited her to join him for breakfast, saying, I see, I do wish to take on a mission soon, perhaps after some breakfast we can talk this over? To put it mildly, breakfast had been amazing, and everyone had relished the other people's company. It finally died down when Naruto made the decision to go talk to Tsunade about the mission he was to undertake. You know that the academy will be opening up again in just a month. Yes, I was also meaning to talk about that. I don't want the students to be prepared. I want them sent into my class, and I'll take it from there. Tsunade nodded in agreement, saying, I see, so it's like a surprise draft, very devious of you. I will of course give them a choice, if they want to leave, they may, Naruto replied, so it's not quite a draft. Tsunade gave him the previous report and the current mission outline, saying, anyway, a member of the terrorist organization Akatsuki has been captured and they need someone to perform the execution in a way that will surely kill him. Naruto continued reading the details, saying, so it's a tricky one then, let's see. Zetsu of the Grass. Zetsu had been captured in Konoha and deported to Grass, and they wanted someone from Konoha to carry out his execution and deliver the bounty money. I'll be back in a few days. Sato Kusagakure Naruto had taken off all of his belongings, including his ring, and was now standing in front of the green man. He read his final rites to the man. Zetsu of the Grass, you are sentenced to death for treason, unlawful murder, and conspiring with a terrorist organization. What are your last words? Asked Naruto. Zetsu bowed his head and accepted his death, saying, Pain-sama will have his wish, you will all feel his wrath. With his hands, Naruto created seals, sealing arts. Hellbind. Naruto had made sure that the Reaper himself would take Zetsu's soul from his body. When he struck the final blow, Naruto quickly drew his sword, made a clean cut, and decapitated the oddly altered man, saying, Repent in hell. The Reaper of Souls arrived on the plane of existence known as life at that very moment. The Reaper was not at all a terrifying creature, rather, he resembled an angel that had rolled in a bed of charcoal. You have done a service, Namikaze. This man was never meant to live. He is an abomination of the arts your kind call science. You will be allowed one request. Naruto had cleaned his blade and knelt down. Reaper of Souls, I ask that you allow me to speak with my father. As you know, I never was able to hear his voice. This is my request. Done. The Reaper summoned Namikaze Minato back to the world of the living with a wave of his hand. Father, Naruto stood up, recognizing his father, the late 4th Hokage, standing before him. Naruto, I see you've pursued a different path than I did. The samurai way is no less honorable. The elderly gentleman grinned. Naruto described the circumstances that shaped him into the person he is today. I see, Lord Reaper. May I send a message along with Naruto back to my homeland? The Reaper held out a scroll, and Minato wrote his message on it. You may. Write it on this. Its seal indicated that it was taken from the land of the dead and that Namikaze was the author. Naruto nodded as he accepted the scroll from his father. Remember your priorities, son. Do not let revenge consume you, and always stay loyal to those you love. Oh, and don't put jalapenos in your ramen. It makes your farts burn, the father said, as his son laughed. The Reaper said, Minato, your time is up. Minato gave his son a hug and said, Good seeing you. Son, I'll say hi to your mom, for you all have to wait a while to see you. Naruto said, Bye Dad. I love you. His eyes were on the verge of tears. The Reaper took the man away after he said, I love you too, son. The man who was instructed to go with him and verify the execution had a shocked expression on his face. Naruto just turned and walked away. After a 4-day journey, he brought the scroll to Tsunade when he got back to Konoha. Aur handed over the parchment and said, My father brought Konoha a gift. Jiraiya, who was in the vicinity. You have a dead man's seal on that paper? That means I'm going to see my pupil again. The elderly gentleman laughed. Naruto told Jiraiya, he asked it to be presented to the people, and it's going to be a recorded message, not actually him but a clone sealed into the paper. Jiraiya answered, it doesn't mean seeing him will be any less satisfying. Tsunade said, well, let's gather the citizens, they'll want to hear this. She then distributed the word to every Anbu in the city. After almost an hour, all of the city's residents, ninja, and civilians were gathered in one area big enough to accommodate them all. The square in the city before the Hokage Tower. Citizens of Konoha, I've had you gather because we have received a message from our late hero Yondaime Hokage. Jiraiya stepped up and said, that's absurd. He's been dead for 15 years. Jiraiya yelled over the throng, no, actually there are ways for even dead men to send messages if the Reaper permits it. She gave the scroll to Naruto, who then unlocked the Namikaze seal and unfolded the scroll in front of the audience, saying, now let us show you what he has to say. The former Hokage stood facing his former subordinates in a cloud of smoke. Citizens of Konoha, I have come to say many things. First of all is that I'm disappointed that you couldn't see Naruto as a hero. He truly is. He's the only reason that I was able to stop the Kyuubi, because he's held it inside him for 15 years. Next, I must also say that I'm disappointed in his treatment here. He's taken a burden like no other and you punish him for it? The residents cowered in fear of their heroes. Third, I don't want him treated as royalty even though he's my son. I want him to be treated like a hero who has earned it. He's worked hard and is still working hard to gain recognition. And when he passes I want his face carved on the Hokage monument. It deserves to be up there for the things he has done." Minato then cracked a grin. "I've missed this village very much, it was my home, and it still is. I hope you all can come to honor these wishes of mine. I love all of you. The people whom I used to lead." That was his final statement. Many stood and re-examined their actions. They had been too consumed by rage to recognize Naruto's true nature. They gradually faded away until they were completely gone. Naruto had started walking home while reflecting on his father's remarks. "These past few days have been a surprising turn of events, boy," Kyuubi replied. He was stopped by a man who said, "That they have." The man then dropped to his knees and asked, "May I help you?" "I have to apologize, Naruto-san. I lost my brother in the Nine Tails attack, and I've done nothing but mistreat you for saving us all. I hope you can forgive me." "Stand." The man immediately stood up. Naruto gave the man a stern look and said, "You sold me rotten food and overpriced the good items. But my dad said that I'm to be treated like a hero who earned it, and it wouldn't do to go and not forgive the people who were simply acting out of pain and fear that my dad's seal would let the fox out again. I can forgive you." The man raised his voice and left. During the brief walk home, Naruto encountered this numerous times. He sensed something in the grounds when he got there. Itachi and his companion showed up and said, "Come out. I know you're there. We'll fight here and now, not like cowards." Kisame grinned like a shark and said, "Hello Naruto, I don't suppose you would come with us quietly?" Naruto took the sealed ring from his GI and said, "No can do, we're going to duke it out. If you win you can take me and you can have Zetsu's ring back." Naruto spun as he drew and cut Kisame as he was retreating after Kisame rushed in first and blocked the sword with his sheath. He prepared to charge once more. "A fast one, aren't you?" he asked. Naruto had already encountered Itachi's genjutsu skills when he had gone in search of Tsunade, so he avoided making any kind of eye contact with the man. "Itachi, do your thing." He closed his eyes to accomplish this. Naruto took a Batu stance and said, "You will come to fear the Mitsurugi no Tenchi Ryu." Kisame winced. Kisame turned to Itachi and asked, "You're a master of that style of swordsmanship? We best get out of here, Itachi, or he's going to dice us up and I don't want to be sushi." Itachi said quietly, "We have our orders, and whether we lose our lives or not is irrelevant." Naruto created the seals for his Hellbind, saying, "You won't just lose your lives." Sealing arts. Hellbind. The art's short lifespan was a drawback. Kisame barely deflected the blade before Naruto disappeared, forcing him to leap away to avoid the razor-sharp blade. Naruto's defense was nearly flawless, leaving no space for a counterattack. Kisame dropped the blade after Naruto finally managed to cut him again, this time across his right arm. Having only used his backup sword once, Kisame pulled out a ninja to Naruto's powerful blows required the X-Mist ninja to block them with both hands. The Konoha samurai continued, slicing Kisame across the abdomen with his wakizashi. Naruto turned on Itachi and said, "May you atone for your sins in hell." Itachi now understood that his only choice was to flee because Naruto moved too quickly for him to follow with his Sharingan, and he suspected Amaterasu wouldn't work. "Itachi, I want to ask you something." "What is it?" Itachi asked himself as he waited, fearing that these might be his final moments. With his eyes still closed, Naruto wiped his blade clean and asked, "Why did you do it? Why kill all of your family? And why leave Sasuke alive?" "Because Naruto, they were corrupt, and they wanted to conquer Konoha, and they would have had I not done what I did." He exhaled. "But I cared for Sasuke too much. I couldn't take his life, but now I've seen what he become. I have something to ask you." Naruto could now comprehend. "What?" "Two things really. The first being, did you really slaughter the whole Hyuga clan?" "I did. Their leader tried to assassinate me, so I destroyed all but 5, those who I trusted." Itachi removed the ring from Kisame's finger and said, "And I also want you to destroy what my brother has become. He's a monster, and I can't bear to see my young brother be such a beast." Itachi took off his ring, closed his eyes, and bowed to Naruto. "You should take mine too. These rings are important to Pain's method of control. I'm turning myself in." Sensing that Itachi had no malicious intent, the Namikaze approached the ninja cautiously, took the rings, and then used a control technique by grabbing the man by the wrist and shoulder. After serving 2 years in the highest security ninja prison at the time for his involvement with a terrorist group, the ninja was released as a civilian with no possibility of ever joining the ninja community again. Itachi was happy with the seal that he had received inside the prison, which prevented him from using more chakra than was necessary to keep him alive. This seal was given to other ninja who were to have their ninja status taken away. Naruto had brought the rings to Tsunade and instructed her to distribute the money to the general public because he already had enough cash. An unidentified group member remarked, "Pain-sama, it appears that Kisame and Itachi have both been killed." "So be it, were their rings recovered?" "No, they were taken by their killer. Also, Itachi's body was never recovered. We suspect that it was Uzumaki Naruto. He disappeared for a long period of time and now he's returned incredibly strong." The group member hurried away, saying, "I see, send Madara to find the young Uchiha. As for the Kyuubi container, 8 is enough. The boy is to die at any cost." If Pain were acting rationally, he would never make such choices. Madara had been listening to what was being said. He grinned under his mask and said, "So I get to corrupt yet another Uchiha?" Madara then started looking for the Uchiha he was supposed to find, thinking, maybe this one won't die. After telling the Anbu last week that he didn't want blood on his doorstep, Naruto found himself in a difficult situation when Kisame passed away directly in front of his door in order to dilute the dried blood and allow it to invisibly seep into the dirt. He now knelt on the dirt and stone pathway, cleaning the stones and removing the blood with a bucket of water. After the stones were cleaned, the dirt eventually turned brown. Once more he remembered Itachi's words as he got to his feet. "I can't bear to see the beast he's become," Naruto said out loud. "Looks like I've got more than one reason to take him out then." A messenger hawk, which he identified as being of the Sanagakure breed, was flying toward the tower. When he looked up at the sky, Naruto got up and entered the mansion, saying, "Well, it looks like I might have some more work to do. Let's get cleaned up." He and Sakura were summoned to the Hokage's office nearly 15 minutes later. Gaara's been kidnapped. Standing there in his typical clothes, Naruto showed no signs of emotion. Naruto muttered, "Itachi informed me that they would be capturing Jinchuriki. We might need him on this. He's got no chakra left, and besides he has a 2-year sentence with no chance of ever becoming a ninja again." Naruto shrugged as he listened to the mission briefing, saying, "So be it, but these guys are tough. I had a hard time beating Kisame, and I don't know what tricks they have up their sleeves." She distributed the last known pictures of them, saying, "So we have identified the 2 targets. One is believed to be a puppeteer by the name of aka Suna no Sasori. The other is an explosives expert named Deidara. Last name unknown. Both are S-class criminals. Kill on sight." Deidara was a blonde man with a haircut resembling that of Yamanaka Ino of Konoha. Sasori, or his vessel, was a big, metallic thing that resembled a scorpion. The team consisted of Naruto, Sakura, Kakashi, and Team Guy. "Scouts from the border report them traveling our way. Your team is to intercept them." Tsunade gave them time to get ready for the mission, saying, "You have 1 hour, meet at the west gate and depart." Prior to each mission, Naruto would meditate. He got up and put on the red armor he had worn to the Hyuga compound just a few weeks prior. The other members were already at the gate when Sakura and he arrived. Kakashi was the last to arrive. Night had long since fallen, but they continued to move in the dark in the hopes of gaining ground on the enemy all the way to the river country border. When morning arrived, the team resumed their journey. Hyuga Neji could make out the 2 men with his Byakugan in the distance. 3 kilometers west. "If we're quick we can intercept them by surprise." One clone chose to reclaim Gaara, leapt as though to remove Deidara's enormous clay bird, and swiped the ninja off the living artwork. "Okay, Naruto, we need a line of archers. They'll initiate contact, then have them armed with spears and charge. When they're depleted we'll move in and attack." They covered the distance swiftly. Sasori's kunai was taken in the back as the clone swiftly withdrew, but the target was recovered. Kakashi yelled, "Guy! Lee! Get Gaara back to Suna!" And it was completed in an instant. Eventually, 1 arrow hit the ninja after the other ninja attacked, and Naruto fired arrow after arrow at Deidara, who retaliated with clay birds that exploded. Sakura and Tenten moved in with Kakashi and Sasori. The explosives user was attacked by Neji and Naruto. Neji came from his left side and hit the tenketsu in his left arm, immobilizing it. Naruto's arrow had done the same to his right, and he had unwrapped his spear and thrown it, piercing the ninja's chest, murdering him. It was much more difficult to crack Sasori. Tenten's sharpest long-range weapons could not penetrate his hard shell, and his tail allowed for 360 degrees of defense. Neji and Naruto joined the battle. "We need to remove that tail, but nobody can get close enough to it," said Kakashi. Naruto grinned beneath his disguise. He took his stance and his katana began to charge chakra, saying, "Leave that to me." Itachi no Kasai launched from the blade at a horizontal trajectory with a spin and a kiai, slicing straight through the metal tail. Sasori yelled, "What the hell was that?" Naruto struck again, severing the left arm and leg. "Your armor is good for fighting ninja, I'll give you that, but you've never fought a samurai, especially one of the Mitsurugi no Tenchi Ryu." Naruto took off his mask and said, "So now you're useless, because we can fight at farther range than you." Naruto was going to unleash another Tachi no Kasai when Sasori vanished. and not even Neji with his Byakugan could find him. Here is the face of the one who will kill you. Sakura looked around, saying, weird. They were standing in a desert, unsure of what to do. They started toward the Sanagakure village after Kakashi said, let's go get Guy and Lee, then we can head out. They discovered Guy and Lee preaching there, flames of youth, to a disinterested Gaara inside the village. Naruto paused to take off his armor and seal it away as they swiftly dragged the two away. Temari went up to Gaara as they were leaving. She said, brother, who was the samurai with them? That was Naruto. You mean the loudmouth punk who beat you all those years ago? Gaara gave a nod. Temari gave him a look. Her thoughts were, he's changed a lot. After reporting to Tsunade, the rescue team went their separate ways, but they returned to Konoha intact. But Naruto was left behind. Naruto, there have been rumors of Sasuke and his group Snake moving around too close to Konoha. I need you to go when you feel rested enough and exterminate or expel them. I can leave tomorrow. As Tsunade inquired, how are you and Sakura doing? Naruto? For a second, Naruto winced. Good I guess. I want you to spend some time with her before you move on. Sasuke, us women need to be cared for, and you've been really busy lately. Naruto, take her out, do something for her. Tsunade responded. Upon reflection, Naruto realized that he hadn't been seeing Sakura very often. Naruto changed his mind and said, okay, I'll depart in 3 days. Tsunade pushed him away, saying, good, now go plan something nice for the girl. Sitting in the window was Jiraiya. He grinned and said, making up for what you don't have, Tsunade. Partially, and I'm making sure he doesn't end up like you and Kakashi. Devilishly handsome. Smiled Jiraiya. Tsunade sneered, no, alone and perverted. That's cold, Tsunade, but it's true. As Naruto made his way home, he was making plans for his next move. He remembered a fancy restaurant he had seen and entered. Naruto stated, I'd like to make reservations for tomorrow. The woman perused her books and said, let's see how many spots we have open. You're in luck, there's only one left. Name please? She nodded and said, Namikaze. Naruto, what time? 8 p.m. With a nod, Naruto said, okay, thanks, we'll see you tomorrow. He felt the presence again when he got home, and he called it out, but when no one answered, he pulled out his sword and started to patrol the perimeter. Nothing. When he turned the first corner, he turned the second corner and saw nothing, but as he was approaching the back door, he saw the person whose presence it was and something that made him feel extremely cold. Hello, Dobi. Sasuke sat on Sakura's motionless body and stood with his sword in the ground. I told her I was just waiting for you, but she insisted on attacking. You bastard. Sasuke drew his sword from the ground and aimed it at Sakura's neck, causing Naruto to halt his attempt to draw his own. Naruto dropped his hand and said, you don't want to do that. Sasuke was now using the sword as a pointer, pointing the blade at Naruto idly, saying, you see, I've got a bit of a problem here. You captured my brother, the one I've been trying to kill for damn near half my life now, and the organization I'm now working with want you dead. Sakura was brought up with him as Sasuke stood, waved his sword, and left. Now what I want from you is first to break my brother out of prison, bring him to me at the location I'm going to leave you, and I'll return your girl here. With a loud curse, Naruto went back to the restaurant to cancel his reservations because they were on their way, and then he went to Tsunade's office. I need Itachi. No brat, I already told you, he's in there for 2 years, and he's not much of a use to you anyway. Naruto's eyes slowly bled into the red of his Kyuubi state as he yelled, they took Sakura. And he can use a sword better than any other shinobi I've met. Sasuke wants Itachi in exchange for Sakura, and don't you dare say no, because I swear to God I will kill you if I can't get Sakura back. Disregarding the death threat, Tsunade clapped, Naruto. Why didn't you say so? She was aware of his reaction when his beloved people were in danger immediately, and Anbu entered the room. Naruto turned and followed the Anbu, saying, get this man Itachi's cell key and a sword. Get a sword as well. Naruto entered the cell after it had been opened and stood in front of it. Naruto held out the ninja he had recovered and said, come on, we've got a sibling to go kill and a damsel to rescue. When Itachi looked up, he appeared exactly the same, albeit with a little more muscle. After getting to his feet and stretching a little, he took the blade and strapped it over his shoulder before they left the prison. So he seriously came to your house and just walked off? Yup, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do. I wasn't going to risk hurting Sakura. Sasuke isn't the kind to hurt someone who listens to him, so she'll be fine as long as she is obedient. Naruto and Itachi left for the east. Even though Sakura was only a day's drive from Konoha, it was difficult to keep her unconscious for that long. As Sasuke walked with her on his shoulder when he finally arrived, he dropped her off in the room, making sure it was the cell he had set up. When Sakura regained consciousness, she discovered that her arms and legs were bound and that her head and neck hurt a lot. They became tighter when she attempted to remove them, and she discovered that the ends were too far away for her fingers to grasp. When she attempted to untie them, she was stuck. When she searched for all of her hidden blades, she discovered that they were all gone. In a flash, all of her memories returned to her. Whoever captured me must have known where I, Sasuke. She composed herself, concentrated on her first assignment, and left the cell. After closing her eyes and lowering her heart rate and breathing, she attempted to focus her chakra, but an unusual thing occurred. Nothing. She tried again and failed when she noticed that the walls were covered in the same seals that were used to capture ninja prisoners in Konoha. She understood why she had to think creatively, because she couldn't mold any amount of chakra. She thought, okay, the knot tightens when I apply pressure. She brought her wrists close together, dislocated her left thumb, and carefully worked her hand free of the restraints, saying, then if I relax and work carefully, I may be able to get my hands free. After untying her right hand, she started to get up. After finishing, she wasn't sure what to do next because, although she was now free, she lacked equipment and chakra. As Naruto and Itachi hurried to the designated spot, they noticed what appeared to be a modest building complex, but based on the number of guards, it was actually a sizable underground stronghold. Right now, they were concealed in the forest at the edge of the clearing. Naruto, you have a bow, right? Make shadow clones and have them fire on the guards. Naruto retreated into the forest and created almost 100 clones, saying, we're not sure how many are underground, so we'll have to keep this quiet. He ordered them to fire their bows first, and then, as the sheer number of projectiles caught the guards off guard, they attacked with spears and swords, bringing down the ground-level guards naturally. Sasuke was alerted to this and dispatched additional guards before him as he went to retrieve his prisoner. When Sakura heard a disturbance upstairs, she prepared herself and waited for her escape to arrive. Behind the door, Sasuke entered, but he was taken aback when the sink pipe struck his skull, causing him to crumple. Sakura locked him in the chakra sapping cell after removing all hard objects from the room and taking his sword, keys, and other weapons. One by one, Naruto and Itachi defeated the seemingly endless guards. At that moment, they became aware that guards were also falling from the opposite side. In an attempt to locate their ally, they launched an attack toward the entrance. Soldiers realized who they were fighting when they started to flee. With a shout of, Sakura! Naruto rushed to the kunoichi carrying Sasuke's sword. How did you get Sasuke's kusanagi? Sakura smiled and said, I hit him in the head with a pipe. She glanced at Itachi and gave the man a kiss. I thought he was in prison? Naruto ushered her out of the area, saying, well, Sasuke wanted me to bring him along, so I did. What he didn't know is that Itachi is the best living swordsman that still calls himself a ninja. They went back to Tsunade's office in Konoha. Naruto said, as if he were requesting that Itachi pour him a glass of water, I'd like to make Itachi a member of my samurai unit. Naruto, we went over this already, Sakura exclaimed. Tsunade Shisho, he just helped save my life. He could have burned Naruto to death with his black fire, but instead he turned himself in and shared all the information about Akatsuki he had. Sakura's face conveyed the rage that Naruto was feeling. She had grown to regard Itachi as a sort of friend. And he also killed almost his entire clan for the good of our nation. He also had his massive reserves of chakra cut off. I think that's enough to say he's loyal to us. If he is to be part of the unit, won't he need some chakra for seals though? And that Tachi no Kasai technique? I want you to allow me to change the seal so he can use 1/2 of his chakra, said Naruto. Naruto, you know I can't do that. Tsunade was gradually coming to terms with the fact that she was losing the battle. Then I'll do it without your permission. Just say the one simple word, and I'll do it. I could give him back his full capacity, which I think he should have, but you're so fixed on him being a bad person that you want him to be punished. Naruto raised his eyebrows. Tsunade put a hand to her own head. It's called the legal system, Naruto. Now that Naruto was yelling, Itachi is not a criminal. He was a double agent. Tsunade realized she should just let him do as he pleased because he would. Tsunade waved them away, saying, okay, take off the seal, but if he does anything dumb, it's on your head. Itachi bowed, thank you Tsunade-sama, and they departed. Naruto hoped no one else attempted to visit him. As they made their way back, he noticed a man sitting on his front step, sipping sake from a jug, as soon as he entered the gate. The words, pretty nice digs you've got here, Naruto, made Naruto's face pop. Sensei. When did you get here? Last night, that woman said that you were out getting someone, and you should be back today. He drank something. Sakura's expression interrupted him. She can really toss him back, by the way, and have you seen that raw? Naruto opened the door, saying, it's best not to speak of these things around Sakura, she's not too fond of perverts. You did realize that there are other tenants, right? Then Mitsurugi saw his other companion and said, "Yeah, the ones with those strange eyes, the Hyuga." Mitsurugi smirked and said, "And you have a Uchiha here too. Have you begun collecting royalty?" "No, it just happened that way. I killed most of the Hyuga clan. They were corrupt and hateful to the rest of Konoha, and that is something Konoha has too many of." He looked at Itachi. "I'm going to include Itachi, a ninja who did the same to his clan before leaving. In my samurai unit he came back and turned himself in." "Samurai? On the island of Konoha? They will act as a police force and do things that Anbu normally do, so we have our Anbu for their special operations," Naruto clarified. Mitsurugi then scowled and said, "I see, then it appears that Mitsurugi no Tenshi Ryu will be receiving some genuine recognition. Where are you getting the recruits?" "Some of my academy pupils come from families with little to no ninja heritage. They'll be my pupils." "You seem to have given this a lot of thought, don't you? I can't say no in that case. Anyway, sensei, why have you come here?" Mitsurugi held up the jug and said, "I was coming to see how you were doing, and I've heard that Konoha has some of the best sake around. How about we celebrate a successful rescue with some drinks?" Naruto smiled. He had spent too much time apart from his sensei. "Naruto, your teacher is like a combination of Jiraiya and Tsunade Shisho." "No other way I'd have it." Naruto hurriedly produced sake dishes and handed one to each of his housemates. Sakura was apprehensive, but all of the Hyuga refused, and Itachi and Naruto started downing the drink before the Haruno joined in. Before the owner of his home and his lover kept the other tenants up all night with their evening activities, the night went by swiftly. Naruto entered the room as Mitsurugi was eating breakfast at the table in the morning. Mitsurugi smiled and Naruto slapped his hand across his face, saying, "You really know how to please her, punk. Why do all of my instructors act like perverts?" In his head, Naruto yelled. "Really, she kept us up all night, Itachi and I at least. I don't know about the Hyugas. They sleep on the opposite side of the mansion." Naruto's face was a fiery red. "No need to be embarrassed, kid. That's a gift very few men have, and for it to come naturally is an even better thing. May I ask you a question, sensei?" "Shoot. Why do all the men who teach me have perverted tendencies?" "Perhaps it's because you're one. I've heard about the sexy jutsu you used as a child on your first sensei. Anyway, boy, I'm not just here to see you. There's another reason I came recently. There have been rumors. Do you know anything about the people who have been captured by someone who has demons in them?" "Yes, Itachi told us everything about the group you mentioned. I killed 3 people, one with Hyuga Neji's assistance and the others by myself." "You've done the world a great service, Naruto." Mitsurugi smiled. "Seems you've had a pretty tight schedule lately." "I have a sensei. In addition to being extremely busy lately, I will soon be accepting students for the unit. Just remember that you could very well be sending these children to their deaths, when war comes, and it will. You'll need to remember that they will fight, and some of them will die." Mitsurugi was now more serious. "I know, sensei. To go into combat is to be prepared for death." 1. Mitsurugi got up and said, "Exactly. Make sure that all of those kids know that. I won't allow you to send people who aren't ready for death into combat. I have to go now, Naruto, because I have some things to look into before I go home." Mitsurugi grinned and walked away from his pupil to think about those things. "Write me when you start teaching those kids." Sasuke's base. The previous day when Sasuke awoke, his head was pounding. What happened? Damn it. He then realized his sword and his weapons were missing. That bitch. Since Sakura was a clever one, there was not a single piece of hard material in the cell, so Sasuke got up and searched for something to open the door. Konoha. After a week, the 50 candidates Naruto sat in front of were all utterly perplexed. They all gave him a weird look when he said, "Hello class, my name is Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, and I would like to tell you that if you stay with me, you will not become ninja. Instead, you will become something more powerful. You'll develop into a top-tier samurai." 5 students stood up and departed, going to the other classroom as Naruto said, "There are still 45 of you, I'm glad. You will become samurai of the heavenly sword style." He turned to face the students. "If you wish to become ninja, you may. There is a class down the hall, and there are still openings. As samurai, you will now remain here and serve as the police force instead of going on missions until I call you all to war. You keep doing this. We've been together for 5 or 6 years. Even though the majority of you are 9 or 10 years old and some are 11, that's good because I learned 5 years of information in 2 years when I was learning." The kids continued to look perplexed. "Sensei, if this is a ninja village, why are we learning how to be samurai?" "That's a good question. First, I understand that most of you are orphans, those of you who will be living with me, and in return you will learn. and treat my other housemates with respect. Naruto led the class out of the academy building and to his house, which was only a short distance away. Now you will follow me to my house. That is where we will meet for training. Naruto made all of the children stand up. After showing them the stack of uniforms, the black hakama, and the gray GI, Naruto had them line up in 5 rows of 8. Itachi stood in the front row on the right, having already started learning the fundamentals from Naruto at a more advanced pace. Now, there are uniforms here for you. You are to refer to Itachi as sensei, he is your superior student. When you arrive at class, you should line up like this. At 8 a.m., it begins. Lunch is served from noon to 1 o'clock. Just like the academy classes, they all nodded and changed into their uniforms, taking turns in the various rooms of the house and the smaller quarters that Naruto and Itachi had previously constructed to accommodate the students he was taking on. And you will come back here and learn for 3 more hours. That was comparable to the academy schedule, but he ended the class an hour earlier. They were all lined up in the same order when they got back, and Naruto and Itachi stood in front of the class. Holding a rack that contained several dozen bakken, they started with simple strikes and stances so the children could get a feel for the wooden blades. Naruto smiled at the class, who were incredibly eager to learn the warrior's way. The students that lived with Naruto were awakened at sunrise, as he always did, and he made sure that none of them had failed. Attending to all of the students was a challenging task, so he placed a gravity seal on the training grounds so that anyone entering the perimeter would be immediately affected. This affected the students in that they would all receive the same amount of gravity amplification, and the seals were fed off the natural energy of the grounds. His last student would turn 15 on this morning, so he changed the Jenpuku method, but the ceremony was the same. His students sat in alphabetical rank and file, with their wooden wakizashi in their belt and their wooden katana on their left. Behind them was a staff. Just a wooden pole with no markings, and their bow sat with their staff. Since Itachi was the class's senpai, he sat behind Naruto, facing the class, while Naruto stood in front of his students. You are all going to become samurai today, and then you will pledge your sword to the Hokage. You will no longer be my students, but my equals. Naruto looked over his students and said, none of you will fail, and you will all be given the swords that I have forged with these very hands. Naruto held out his hands, having learned how to make swords from the man who made them while he was with Mitsurugi. Stand. 45 soon-to-be samurai were standing at attention as they all put their swords in their belts and picked up their staves. Pair off. Itachi paired with the final student after 22 pairs were formed. Your sword skills will be the first thing evaluated. Strike with your soul, not your sword. They lined up, each with a sword in hand, poised to attack. As each of the wooden blades struck, Naruto watched, deciding who attacked and who did so. Those who initially passed went back to their seiza, while those who did not were paired up and instructed to go again until only one student was left. Itachi, who had grown accustomed to referring to Naruto as his teacher, said, Sensei, I'll pair up with him. No, I will. Naruto drew his katana and stood in front of the teenage boy. Strike with your soul, with everything you have, or you will die. The boy was ready, his sword in hand, feeling the boy's chakra spike as he attacked. This was what he wanted. He parried and blocked the sword, coming just short of the boy's neck. You are strong, but hesitant. If someone is holding his sword against you, don't hesitate. Get your bow, Naruto said, sheathing his blade, and kill him. But sensei, put the bow in. Now shoot me, Naruto yelled, and the boy nodded before grabbing his bow. You will be killed if you hesitate. Naruto picked up his spear and stood ready to throw it, staring at his teacher, his target. He drew the string and fired, and Naruto caught the arrow. I must do this. He recalled everything Naruto had given him, including a shelter, the Bushido, and everything he was. All right, now take a seat with your peers. Naruto gave him the arrow. The next test was the staff test. The ancient samurai thought that a man was a master spearman if he could only use the last 6 inches of a staff. Therefore, they were given staves rather than spears to test true mastery. He tested the person who was always left. The pairings were always switched up, so he tested a lot of people. It was similar to the last time, but this time every student passed. Itachi had achieved the rank of samurai 2 years prior, and because he was older and physically matured, he could handle the stresses of a faster-paced training regiment. At last, there was an archery test. They were arranged in rows, 15 long and 3 deep. Unlike ninja and civilian archers, traditional samurai archers drew their arrows above their heads, with the forward hand coming down first and the rear hand following. While the arrow was drawn, the first row fired, then moved out of the way, and the second row fired, and the third row fired last. Each student had passed their archery test on their first attempt, and there were 15 targets at a 20-meter range, each with 3 arrows. All right, all 3 of the tests I've given you so far have been passed. Another one now. 5-person groups. They all stood with only wakizashi. Now I want one person to step away from each group. This happened quickly because the students had mastered the ability to read the thoughts of their comrades. Remove your swords from your belt, those of you that stepped away, and hand them to your group. Naruto had never been given this test, but there were no precise testing procedures. Itachi muttered, "Naruto, what are you doing?" Now those in the 4-man group, attack the person in Seiza. He responded, "You'll see, 4 samurai trainees attacked one." The results varied for different groups, but the general pattern was the same. A group would lose 2 or 3, while the 4th would kill the sitter. Others would lose all of them, but the 4th would strike as the sitter did, killing everyone in the group. The sitter, sensing that someone was behind him, rolled forward, drawing his wakizashi and killing the first person before neutralizing all other threats with their katana. As a true samurai would, Naruto was proud. They were using deadly blows, and they battled until they either killed their opponents or perished themselves. He sat with them in a big circle rather than rank and file, saying, "I want all of you to know something. Growing up, I was like almost all of you, a ward of state, an orphan. Love your parents with all of your heart. If you have any, I've been alone since the day I was born because both my mother and father passed away," he began, "until I met my first sensei." He went on to share his story, stating that he would sacrifice himself for anyone he loved without hesitation. "Itachi here is like an older brother to me." He gave Itachi a hug. He was technically a criminal for 8 years. He grinned. He killed his family because they were plotting against what he loved. He fulfilled the meaning of what it means to be a ninja, and even the samurai, Itachi added with a smile, for the sake of his loved ones. He threw away everything he owned, the village, said Naruto. "I want each and every one of you to live your life with the knowledge that you have what it takes to protect your loved ones in the event that they are threatened. You will all be Hokage in this way, defending your loved ones even if it means losing your life. Now stand up, back in rank and file. You need to be given your swords," said Naruto. He called each student up and handed them their spear and daisho after he had been back and forth for almost 30 minutes retrieving the blades he had been crafting with Itachi for almost 2 years. With swords in their belts and spears fastened to shafts, 45 samurai stood before him and all bowed simultaneously. The 45 samurai militia members either found their own homes or stayed with Naruto for the next 3 months. 6 of them stayed, including the boy he tested himself, Kazunoko Arima, a wiry boy with brown hair that was long and tied in a ponytail. The Hyuga clan had already started to rebuild itself. Itachi was seeing Ichiraku Ayame, with whom he had been dating for nearly 2 years. Hinata was engaged to Inuzuka Kiba and they were to be married in 6 months. Neji had married Kasumi Tenden 2 years prior, and they had 2 children, twins. After 5 years of pure bliss, Sakura and Naruto remained together, and she would wake up every morning to watch him train the students. At the moment, she and Naruto were sparring. He used a wooden katana, and she chose a chikudo because she had begun using the kusanagi initially. She had intended to leave it as a simple piece of art, sitting around the house, but something pulled her to the blade, so she asked Naruto to teach her kenjutsu. Although Naruto's bushy instincts made it difficult, he was able to defeat her each time. Even though her sword strokes appeared to be a little more expertly executed, it was clear that both had delivered the blows. "You must allow your soul to be a part of it. It is not merely a physical art. You're thinking about it too much," he said. "Do not think, but strike with all your might, no mind," said Naruto. Sakura focused solely on her blade, its feel in her hands, and the sensation of the air before sensing that Naruto had swung and dodged, allowing her very spirit to direct her movements as each move was made. Naruto sensed her movements and moved accordingly, and the same was true for her. Eventually, both wooden blades came to a stop at the other's neck. Good. At that moment, Sakura became aware that Naruto's eyes were shut. "With your eyes closed, you can defeat me." Sakura thought she had made no progress at all. "Your eyes, ears, and physical senses are irrelevant when you learn to move using your 6th sense." Sakura complied, aware that she was going to witness something spectacular. Naruto put his sword down and said, "Attack." He held his hands at waist level, as though they were resting on a cane. She felt the hand on her wrist and attempted to counter the blow she was certain would land, but his other hand had already tightened on her left, and it only hit air. Her sword vanished in an instant, leaving Naruto's forearm resting lightly against her throat. "Whether or not I have a sword, or any weapon in my hands doesn't matter, as long as I know how to move." He gave her the blade. "If you move right, you may never have to strike." The lessons went on in this manner for a long time, as they usually did, and Arima watched, eager to learn anything that would help the battle he might have to face end sooner. Naruto's teachings, which emphasized kindness, mindfulness, and love, reinforced his natural tendency to be a kind soul. He detested the idea of killing. but he also understood that it might be the only way to save the person he was protecting. Arima was intently observing Naruto, documenting his every move when he halted in the middle of his swing. I killed him with his own sword. He removed the Jo staff from his wall and handed the bakken to his student, saying, "Take this, Arima. I don't think I have ever told you of the first time I took a life." "Sensei, how do we develop the instinctive ability to act so precisely?" "It's easy, Arima. We train mindlessly, focusing solely on our goal and performing every movement flawlessly. We only consider movement and never our adversary." "I see. It sounds like what you told Sakura. Your physical self just follows your soul when you put your soul into your movement." "Exactly. When the time comes, what will you fight for?" the young samurai was asked by Naruto. "I will fight so that I'll never have to kill," Arima replied. "I'll fight so that people don't have to study arts of killing." He grinned and said, "Then you are my most accomplished student already. I'm going to show you the ugi to this style because you are a master who aims to bring about peace, while the others are masters of the blade and bow, something that no one else is aware of." Naruto had been with his master so that he could determine which of his pupils Arima would receive the mastery technique. Many former students came to the Namikaze to ask why he didn't teach them, and Arima would be seen on the grounds for a long time practicing a technique that none of them knew. "Because I was asked. Arima's only goal is to bring about peace. The technique is only appropriate for him," he would respond. "You want power, not peace." Only 5 of them truly accepted it, and they frequently asked Arima what she was doing and got the truthful response. Those who had come to terms with the fact that he had something, they didn't just nodded and attempted to learn something from it. He's learning the mastery of the style. After several weeks, Arima managed to capture the Itachi no Kasai. Naruto resumed his murderous rampage, and the samurai remained in the village, keeping the peace and enabling Anbu to regain its former splendor. The situation was peculiar. Naruto had returned from his most recent mission and was posing as a waiting assassin. Rewind. 1 week ago they had no idea what the man looked like, so they had Naruto act as a kind of bodyguard, with orders to kill anyone who might try to kill his client. Naruto had been sent to Snow Country to kill an assassin, and the suspect was attempting to kill a woman who was next in line for the throne. Naturally, Naruto had ordered his own tea when it occurred, and they were sitting at a tea house. After Naruto leapt in front of her and pulled her away from danger, the seed across from her exploded inward. "So this time, you have samurai assistants, huh? In any case, I've killed a lot of them in my lifetime." The man's fingers were joined all the way up to his plate mail gauntlet, and the backs of them were covered in armor. He had long steel claws on them. "You have never fought one like me." Naruto put his hand on his sword and quickly drew it, but the assassin's claws stopped him. "You're a quick one. It will be more enjoyable this way." The man's voice oozed with insanity. Naruto drew his wakizashi in a reverse grip, but the man jumped away. "Sneaky too." He let out a wild laugh. Naruto swung his clawed hand wildly, avoiding nearly every blow until he struck a wall. "Too slow." The assassin lunged. Naruto grinned, and as the murderer leapt, he held out his blade to impale him. However, the man pushed through, so Naruto took the blade in his left hand and thrust it through the man's clavicle. The smiling madman now stood dead and impaled on his blades, which he pushed off, cleaned, and sheathed. The waiters and waitresses watched in horror as he started to clean up the wooden splinters. One waiter nodded when Naruto said, "If you could get me a mop, I'll clean up the blood. I apologize for the damages. Send the bill to Konoha. I'll pay for them." He came back with a bucket and mop and started to clean up the red plasma, and when the owner emerged, he saw the man lying there, dead. When he was done, he said, "Please help me take the body out back." Naruto picked up the body and carried it outside. "Who are you if you used Mitsurugi no Tenchi Ryu?" When they went outside, the man inquired. "I'm simply a samurai with ties to Konoha. I used to be friends with Tenchi, so I knew that this man wasn't the right one. I've been hearing stories about a man who was killing people in Konoha's name and claimed to use the Tenchi style. What's up with him?" Naruto smiled and said, "He's good. I haven't seen him in 5 years, but we stay in touch. Can you describe the man who is posing as me?" Drawing from his recollections, the man said, "I think I can do it well enough. He was somewhat shorter than you, had black hair, was longer in the front than the back, and wasn't quite as slender as you." Naruto's face darkened as he said, "And he used a chikudo." That was a dead giveaway. He also had dark eyes. Naruto immediately recognized the person tarnishing his style's name and said, "Thank you. I've got a good idea of the man now. I've got to go." "Thank you, sir." Naruto bowed and went to fetch his client. Flashback. Finish. Naruto had sought permission to pursue the Uchiha because he couldn't allow the man to ruin his artistic reputation. At home, Arima sat beside Sakura, who appeared to be thinking about something. "What's the matter, Sakura-san?" did he ask. "I can't figure out how he does it," she replied. "No one should be that fast, it's more than 30 times his top speed." "I know it is. It's his motion." He used a question to illustrate his point. "When an arrow is flying at you, which is more important? When you move or how you move? Mitsurugi no Tenchi Ryu teaches you how to move. Obviously, it's when. How didn't I know that? So it's just that he's timing it better than I am. Not that he's that much faster than me." Hit her like a ton of bricks. "Yeah, like Tsunade-sama's strength training. If you use them in unison, then you'll seem much faster than you really are." Arima laughed. "The gravity seals simply condition the body so that we're faster than anyone else." They both got up and walked from the bench to the gate when they heard a knock. There stood an Anbu holding a letter that said, "Dear Sakura and all of my housemates, it appears that a certain black-haired swordsman has desecrated the reputation of our art, so I've gone to hunt him down and kill him. My absence could last anywhere from a week to a month. When I do, I'll see you. I adore you. Sakura Arima, please assist her in maintaining order among the other housemates." With a signature, Naruto's Namikaze Uzumaki. As soon as Sakura saw the letter, she realized what was happening. He was always adept at sneaking. At this moment, he was skulking down a hallway with a sword in his hand. He had his other senses, so he didn't need his eyes. Even though it was completely dark in the hallway at night as his target slept in his bed, he cautiously approached and slashed his mark's throat, driving his blade through the skull to guarantee his demise. He quickly fled, wiping off his blade and setting the house on fire. As he went, he dropped a scroll as he left the grounds, making his way to his next kill. Naruto was traveling toward his former home because he had long since discovered Mitsurugi's talent for networking and had become friends with all the right people. He didn't want to waste time, so he rode his horse for the 3-day journey. He arrived at the same woods where he had fallen 7 years prior in a panic. He dismounted the horse and hurried forward on foot after realizing he could no longer hear animal sounds. Dark. Everything he saw was black, including the ground, trees, and even the remnants of Tenchi Mitsurugi's former residence. Together with Mitsurugi's caution when handling fire, the scroll that was positioned in the center of everything disregarded it as an accident. He approached and took the scroll. The sight of the Uchiha seal on the outer cover made him angry. He took off the cover and unfolded the scroll. "Dobi, by now, I'm sure you've noticed the mayhem I've caused, and I'll tell you that coming here was a mistake. I'm returning to Konoha to destroy that pathetic ninja village. Excuse 10,000 soldiers and mercenaries will accompany me. I'll give you a month to get ready for your village's destruction." Sasuke Uchiha Naruto didn't waste any time getting back on his horse and riding as quickly as he could toward the village. At the moment, Sasuke was seated in a bar with his new blade resting against the bar. He had located a swordsmith who could create a kusanagi that was comparable in size and characteristics. The Uchiha was sitting alone drinking tea when a man entered and looked around the room. The man sat down and ordered sake. The big, tanned man in all black asked, "So are you the one who's been looking for mercs?" He had dark brown eyes and a shaven head. He had 2 daggers in his belt. The man smiled crazily and asked, "If I am, how will you prove you're strong enough for my job?" His attempt to seize Sasuke was thwarted by the Uchiha, who removed one of the daggers from the merc's belt and held it near his throat. Then Sasuke felt the point of the other dagger in his back and said, "Go ahead and do it, you'll bleed just like me." Sasuke had left Kabuto in charge, deciding to let the odd medic keep the village together. "Okay. Gather any of your friends and head to the village hidden in the sound. Be there in 2 weeks." Sasuke had already carried out this action numerous times in numerous villages in order to gather the last shinobi swordsman of the mist. He even traveled to the mist village. After 2.5 days of fast riding, Naruto arrived in Konoha and went straight to Tsunade with the scroll. Tsunade grimaced as she read the parchment and glanced up at Naruto. "Prepare your samurai, I'll recall all Anbu. How much armor do you have available for them?" replied Tsunade. Naruto intended to arm the few students who had remained with him, saying, "I've got only 5 sets other than mine, we'll need 40 more. Then some will have to use captured armor from conflicts with samurai and mercenaries. We have about 20 sets total for availability. I can talk to all the smiths here in town and have them make armor for them." Tsunade nodded and said, "Okay, I'll gather them up and let them know what's coming." Within an hour, all of Naruto's samurai clan members were lined up in his yard. They were seated with Itachi. He examined each person's face and said, "I have some bad news for all of you." Naruto glanced at Itachi, Arima, and a few others before saying, "Uchiha Sasuke is assembling a force of 10,000 soldiers and mercenaries. Ronin are likely to be involved. We'll be on the front lines of the battle. Some of you will die. Then I want all of you to come here each morning so we can train in battlefield tactics. Bring all your training weapons." Everyone was standing. Naruto bowed to them, saying, "You're dismissed." Naruto was approached by Itachi. "Sasuke's really attacking, I'd worried he would, but not with such numbers. That's almost 5 to 1, he's not messing around Itachi, we need to train them well. When I was Anbu they taught us guerrilla tactics for use on the battlefield, I'll teach them to everyone here, we'll need it, samurai or not. That would help, and a samurai will use ambush and guerrilla tactics, but it's not common since most belong to large clans." Naruto told him. They went inside and started talking about strategies on paper. Sakura was also present because, to the other samurai, she was a senpai and was therefore involved in affairs. The village was prepared for war. Over the course of the following few weeks they talked about unit placements and battle formations. The samurai were given armor, and they trained in multiple combat. Every morning movement was the subject of one of the lessons. Remember, as you cut down your first target, take no time to rest, you must move on and kill the next. Naruto illustrated this point by feigning a Bakken slash and then launching another attack right away. The samurai divided up and engaged in simulated combat with the Bakken and staff. Never linger over the kill on the battlefield. Our purpose is to kill the enemy. We're not going to spare the enemy. Everyone watched and listened with an attention that not even priests would give to the gods they worshipped. You protect your comrades at the cost of even your life, but this doesn't mean carelessly throwing it away. Life is precious, and if you can save yours and theirs, do it. Naruto had split up with the archers, who were the ones who were best at the art during training, while Itachi was teaching the infantry forces his guerrilla tactics. To illustrate his point, Naruto took his arrow and stood facing away from the opening where you would form an advancing force with Bunshin. He said, "Do not center your fire on anyone, simply knock your arrows and fire at the advancing force." He spun around and fired behind him at nearly exactly 180 degrees. He created 50 clones and had the 10 archers fire on them, saying, "Unless you see someone in the crowd who is more dangerous than the others, or have an eye on enemy archers, you will not fire on any specific target." He continued by saying, "The village's archers will assist you in battle." The idea that archers would emerge from trees and bushes, shoot the enemy, and then vanish into the vegetation again would be a murder to the morale of the enemy forces. "We may have you hide in the forest around the village and employ hit-and-run tactics." Uncertain of how to instruct these tactics, Itachi stood before the troops. "It will resemble the time you spent instructing Sasuke. He might very well be employing the strategies I taught him," Itachi thought, then laughed. He ran into the woods to set up his ambush and said, "Okay, I want you guys to advance through the woods back here, and I'll show you how to ambush a superior force and escape." Arima was the pack's natural leader. When he was in combat mode, he just exuded leadership. With Bakken and staves ready, he led the samurai cautiously into the woods. Suddenly, one of the men leading up the rear suppressed a muffled scream. They all turned to see him on the ground with Itachi's fictitious knife drawing red ink across his throat. The paint grenade lodged in his GI was then discovered. Several others were splattered with paint when it went off, and 2 more in the front were covered in red paint. There were numerous other paint bombs all over the place. With his plastic knife in hand, Itachi came out. The key to that tactic is to wait until the last person walks by, because he or she will likely be the least alert. You cut their throat, place an explosive tag on them and push them into the leading troops and vanish off the path. When that happens, your comrades who are farther up attack while attention is drawn in your direction. He grinned. He put his knife away and said, "You then retreat, moving ahead and setting traps." Itachi took a step back from the samurai and said, "Your goal is not to remove the whole force, but to scare and demoralize them, all the while chiseling away at their numbers. Guerrilla tactics are designed to even the odds, and advancing force needs to outnumber the defending force by at least 3 to 1. We have a disadvantage, however. My brother is a native of Konoha. He knows the terrain around here well." "Yes." Itachi summoned the samurai who had raised his weapon. "Uchiha Sasuke. What is he like?" "He's a traitor, this is true, but it's my fault. I'd never expected he'd betray the village to try and gain the power to kill me. He will go to whatever lengths necessary to win. And he is very powerful." Many of the audience members gave up their worries. Another said, "What do you know of his tactics?" "Most of what he knows is learned from here. Before we had you guys I know of his tactics, but he most likely doesn't know of what I am teaching you guys. These are taught only to Anbu." "Then we have nothing to fear." "You do have something to fear. Let me tell you a story of the village hidden in the mist. It goes like this. Unknown time. Sato Kirigakure. Numerous men had been killed. The city was in disarray. Someone had gone on a murderous rampage, and it had seemed as though a single man was responsible for the killings by employing the strategies of the village's Anbu squad. Whatever they did, the murderer or murderers deployed ninjas almost precisely according to the book's ambush tactics, concealed themselves too well, and delivered blows with too much precision. It wasn't until a few weeks later that it was discovered Momochi Zabuza had made up his mind to leave the village and kill as many people as he so desired before leaving. And so you see, even people who are acting with only tactics used by their native village, they're designed to be used against formations that will likely be used by that village because that's how they learned them. So what do we do to prevent that from happening? Every one of you be as alert as possible. The rear, the front, the middle, all of you. The enemy will probably be hit by the archers, who will probably go first, ambushing from long range first. How do you know? Because that's Naruto's style. He'll hit as many times as possible with whatever weapons he has until it's over. Itachi cracked a grin. Now break up into fours. You'll all try this one group at a time. Mix it up though. I don't want to see exactly the same thing twice. After training was over, Naruto lay there gazing up at the night sky, feeling as at ease as possible. Almost like he was sleeping after being abruptly brought back to reality. He sat up, picked up his swords, and started walking in the direction his instinct had directed him to. The moon didn't light up the night as it usually did, and it was dark among the nest of enemies. A single figure moved without ever being noticed. Tags were positioned along the wall at predetermined intervals, and their explosive power was increased. The same treatment was being given to a number of other locations when all of a sudden there was a noise, and the figure put its final tag on and fled. When Naruto noticed the movement, he drew his sword and used his Tachi no Kasai to cut the saboteur in half. After removing the explosive tags, he proceeded to search the building. The Hokage Tower, weapons caches, portions of the prison, and Anbu headquarters were all rocked by explosions. Numerous enemy agents and ninja prisoners managed to escape in silence during the night. Using his best spies to attack the enemy and free prisoners, Sasuke sat close to the walls of his old house. He grinned when the ninja came back. Sasuke had only managed to muster roughly 4,000 mercenaries, samurai, and ninja, which was a small portion of his initial force. Good job. Now, we attack in a week, take them unaware, and we'll be victorious. The village was in disarray the following day as inmates attacked ninjas, civilians, and even attempted to attack Naruto's compound despite outnumbering Naruto's housemates. The attack on the house failed because the Namikaze had his shadow clones as a gift. The rest of the village was in a state of chaos, and all the samurai were sent to help. All of the inmates were either dead or back in prison by the end of the day. The bad news was that patrols had spotted the enemy just 20 kilometers away. Naruto was sitting with Tsunade after receiving the news that Sasuke's army had been spotted 20 kilometers away. According to the document, the army appeared to be primarily made up of mercenaries and the surviving sound ninja. Compared to the initial claim of 10,000, the numbers appeared to be only 4,000. With an army of 2,500, Konoha itself still had a sizable number of adversaries. Although the battle would probably not be impossible, it would still be combat, and combat is never easy. The genin, who did not participate in combat, and civilians were brought to the shelters while the archers had already been dispatched on their ambush missions. Samurai and ninja assembled their supplies. Behind them came the samurai and Anbu. Only about 100 people were left overall, but that meant there would be 100 fewer people to bother them later. Naruto was currently sitting and awaiting the return of the ambush squadron. Once they did, the infantry would attack after the cavalry. When the ambush reappeared, they joined the infantry lines, and Naruto led the cavalry out. Although there weren't many ninja in Konoha who were trained to fight on horseback, the numbers were incredibly misleading because of Naruto and his shadow clones. Sasuke prepared his own mounted army. Only a few clones were lost as Naruto's spears and arrows swept them away. Naruto and the remaining members of the force withdrew. When the number of clones decreased to a small number, they went back to the village and prepared for battle with his spear in hand. Naruto stood in his red armor. Naruto was addressing all of the ninja and samurai who had readied themselves for battle when he said, "This, my fellow warriors, is the second time a ninja who was once a member of our forces has tried to attack us. We will defend our village. I want every one of you to know that I'd much rather be here than anywhere else. You are my family, and I'll die protecting you if it comes to that." Naruto took a breath. Tsunade emerged, positioned beside Naruto. "I want you all to know, I'll be naming Naruto my successor when this battle is over." Tsunade, "I can't, I'm not a ninja anymore. I don't care, you're the only one who's worthy at the time." Naruto turned to face the soldiers and said, "Tsunade, you need a ninja for the job." They all gave him a proud look, with many of them yelling their thoughts. Many people said, "You should accept the title Naruto." Then one turned to the others in the crowd and spoke. As soon as I said, "Let's give a cheer for the 6th Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto," everyone started to cheer. Naruto shook his head, saying, "Looks like the people have decided they want you for the job." Tsunade scowled. "Anyhow, you have an army to lead." Tsunade moved away from the podium. They all chanted a battle cry as Naruto yelled, "Fight hard, protect each other, and may each of you return alive." Sakura and Itachi stood on either side of Naruto, who was in the lead. There were about 200 Anbu in Konoha, after the samurai, who were all on the front lines. There were roughly 800 Junin in total, and the special Junin and Junin were responsible for that. The Chunin, who comprised the majority of the ranks and made up the rear lines in total, came next. The strategy was to confront the threat directly, disperse the lines, break up the enemy formation, and let the remaining defending army move into the center of the mercenary army about 5 miles away. In the fields that encircled Konoha, the armies gathered, with Naruto standing in armor and Sasuke at the front of the line. Sasuke also wore armor, but it was a lighter style. He wore shin guards, arm guards, and a chest plate. "Hello Dobi, the hag has made you her general, has she?" Naruto retorted, "She has. Seems you couldn't meet your quota." He abruptly turned to the left and said, "No matter, we'll crush you regardless." He glanced at the other Uchiha's black, polished armor and said, "Hello brother, I see you've returned to a position in Konoha, but not one I'd expect." He turned and strode back through his army, saying, "I'll let you have your fun with these mercenaries, but I will kill you both." The Konoha soldiers stood like a steel and color forest. Sliding his face shield up, Naruto exclaimed, "Remember what we discussed?" Naruto yelled, "Sakura, be careful Itachi, don't die either." The armies moved forward, assembling in the center as a mass of flesh, armor, and blades. Naruto kills enemies one by one while maintaining a desirable distance from them thanks to his spear's ability to pierce flesh. Sakura's freed Kusanagi expertly dodges any attacks by slicing through enemies' armor as if it were paper. She waged war on her adversary with a natural and learned grace. Itachi was unaccustomed to wearing armor, but that didn't matter to him because he preferred the closeness of a sword to a spear. When attacking his adversaries, he heard Naruto yell, "Spread out," from his left, and all ranks split apart, forming a chasm in the middle of both their own and the enemy line. Both chasms were soon filled, and this continued until the lines were extremely thin. There were many fatalities from the vicious fighting. Numerous ninja, including Rock Lee, Hyuga Neji, Akamichi Choji, and numerous others Naruto knew personally, gave their all in the battle, and the defending side suffered relatively few casualties overall. Since they had been ambushed numerous times on the way in, Sasuke and his army of mercenaries were now constantly watching their back as they retreated. Sasuke's forces suffered 3 times as many casualties as Konoha, which suffered 200. Sitting on the wall surrounding the city, Naruto pondered. "Shall I accept the job? People want me to, but I promised Tenchi sensei that I wouldn't. Being the Hokage requires me to be the strongest ninja in the village, so I am unable to function as one." For many hours, Naruto sat by himself, thinking before sending an emissary to the enemy to permit them to do the same. Some men were sent to gather the bodies. However, they were not prepared for the emissary to be killed and brought back to the village in 3 different pieces. Furious at the deed, Naruto stood. He summoned Itachi. Naruto questioned his good friend, "Itachi, can I trust you to retaliate with a covert op?" Itachi, who was a ninja and a member of the samurai force, asked, "Yes, what should I do? Give me an hour, and I can be ready for anything." "Take 7 of our best Anbu and just fuck up everything you can," said Naruto. Itachi bowed and walked away, grinning at Naruto's word choice. He had made the decision to bring along Kakashi, Neji, and Lee, who, in contrast to popular belief, was a very cunning individual when necessary. Additionally, he had abandoned the green suit since Guy's death, preferring to wear his Anbu clothes instead. The other 4 were volunteers for the action who were Anbu. Itachi and Kakashi were currently on sentry removal. The smell of death and charred flesh and hair was strong, and the funeral pyres had already burned, as were the 2 sound ninjas standing at the entrance to the enormous clearing. Since it was dark outside and they could see 2 ninjas standing there talking to each other, they were the ideal targets for the initial blow. They clapped their hands over their targets' mouths and, with a swift pull of a knife, killed the 2. Kakashi snuck with expert stealth, and Itachi mimicked his movements. The other sentries had been subjected to the same treatment by all 4 groups. According to Naruto, the next step in the plan was to screw things up. Itachi discovered a group of tents occupied by soldiers. The tenants were burned when he used fire jutsu on them. Each of the 8 Anbu used their jutsu and explosive tags to attack the sleeping enemy, and Kakashi also set fire to tents before the morning and the lines of soldiers arrived. They promptly withdrew back into the forest and headed directly to the village to deliver the reports and get some rest. Sasuke took a seat in front of the man who was reporting the events. When Sasuke heard the shuffling of sandals, the sound ninja was kneeling in front of him. "We estimate 80 dead, sir. Those ninja really did a number on our morale as well." Then the man felt a foot stepping on the back of his head and he dug his teeth into the ground. "I don't give a shit about morale. I want that village burned to the ground. It's our turn to mount an invasion. I want our ninja to spread all around the village, sneak through the forest, and all that can use fire jutsu or to do so place explosive tags on the wall too. Spread the word." Sasuke's tone was stern to get the word out. The man got up, bowed, and scampered off. "What exactly do you believe you can do, Naruto?" Sasuke pondered in his mind. Even though no one saw it, it was incredible to witness an entire army moving through a forest in complete silence, leaving no evidence other than the animals. This event will go down in Konoha's history. The entire army began destroying the wall at once, almost without anyone noticing. Some still used conventional explosives, while others used fire jutsu and explosive tags. Ninja raced inside the city to put out the fires, but the invading warriors killed them while anyone who could react did. More still entered through the holes made by the explosives. Sasuke was sitting in his tent. He had a special surprise and had been waiting to join the invasion force. He used a jutsu he had never used before, flashing through hand seals. Summoning arts. Manda. Then a hideous snake from other worlds materialized. Manda was notorious for demanding sacrifices to be called forth. "Manda, we're invading Konoha. You can have your pick from anyone who satisfies your taste." "Yes." As the enormous serpent advanced toward the city, Sasuke leapt on top of its lowered head. An Anbu had just walked up to him in the middle of a battle and told him, "Sir, a giant serpent has just been spotted outside the village." He turned to the Anbu after cleanly slitting a man's throat. "Can you and your men handle things here?" "Yes, sir." He started performing his own hand seals and said, "Then I'll go handle the snake." Summoning arts. Kyuubi. Naruto possessed the knowledge to call forth the giant fox, but he had never done so. "I hope you like snake, fox." "My favorite." The fox licked his chops and ran toward the snake, following its scent. The snake's dark scales appeared to go pale as the enormous paws slammed down for the final time. The Kyuubi licked its chops once more and said, "Hello Manda, I've been told I'm going to have some lunch." It swung at the snake, its hideous ivory teeth grazing its scaled hide, but it was able to snake its way out of the predicament. Excuse the pun. Snake has always been my favorite. When the enormous creatures clashed, the snake, despite being bigger, was defeated by the Kyuubi because it lacked the demon fox's sheer strength. Now that the enormous fox and his erstwhile teammate were upon him, Sasuke stood. He defeated the demon and sent it back to its prison by using the Uchiha's ability to control the nine tails with an outstretched hand. At the moment, Naruto and Sasuke were standing facing one another. Naruto asked, his voice barely able to control the anger it contained, "So Sasuke, is this where it will end? Or will you retreat once again?" He sensed the 200 soldiers charging toward him and said, "You wish, I'll not be retreating, it'll be you." He turned and rushed directly into the crowd, slicing them apart while creating clones. Naruto noticed the fear in Sasuke's eyes and said, "Another time then, I want your entire army to see it when your life is ended." In an instant, Naruto had slain 200 men. Then he left in a composed manner. "Kyuubi, I want your help. I'm going to walk back into the village. I want your chakra to help me." Kyuubi then accepted the taking of his chakra, saying, "Done. You gave me a snack, it's the least I could do." Shrouded in the demonic energy, Naruto made his way toward the swarms of ninja and mercenaries. Destroying everything they could, the invaders battled their way into the village. One yelled, "What the hell is that?" and gestured toward the mass of red flame that resembled chakra. Then it disappeared, showing up directly in front of a mercenary group, tearing them all to pieces before continuing on to find more victims. The red chakra was the only thing that emphasized the red armor. Mercenaries fled from the samurai who were carrying demons. Sasuke saw someone while he was sitting there, flailing in rage. The man said, "I hear you're attacking Konoha?" "Yeah, but what is one merc going to do?" "No, not one. 1,000. I've got 1,000 mercenaries waiting a few miles off." "Name your price." "No cost. I just want to kill Konoha ninja." There were significantly more casualties on the second day of fighting than on the first. Yamato had been given the task of repairing the wall's holes. Because of his unique talent for working with nature, he eventually got the big ones, the areas that were difficult to defend, and the openings that would let a lot of people in. The man who was now recognized as the Hokage was meditating at the moment. He didn't have much time to think about all the things he wanted to. Naruto personally dug the graves, which were now only marked with wooden crosses, but he had promised to provide them with appropriate markers once the fighting was over. 4 of his samurai had died in the battle today, and one yesterday. All 5 of them were buried on his grounds. He had a vision while he was sitting in the room he had set aside for meditation. A fox appeared to be alone as a dragon flew toward it, but another dragon was concealed in its shadow. The fox struck suffering a near-fatal wound and killing both dragons in the process. After that, the fox lay down to await death. After opening his eyes, Naruto got up and went outside. It was late, perhaps 2 in the morning, but not quite too late. He had chosen to take a short stroll. Itachi and Kakashi sat together. They hadn't had much time to catch up since Itachi's return because he had spent so much time with Naruto and Kakashi in the Anbu. Itachi drank from the tea that was placed in front of him and inquired, "So have you resumed your position as captain?" Kakashi also had tea, but had not yet had a drink. "Yeah, Yamato retired as captain a while ago, and they needed someone for the job. I decided that I might as well volunteer. I've already done it once, why not?" Kakashi said. "I never really liked the job. You were 13 when you took the job." "You weren't much older." Kakashi, who was 8 years older than Itachi, had been the standing captain when Itachi applied to Anbu. "But I was better prepared. I'd already seen a lot of combat by then, so paperwork and all that was no problem. I remember when you first applied for Anbu, no one really took you seriously. Being only 13, you didn't look like much. You couldn't even use a sword when we decided to test you." After 9 years of special operations duty, the Cyclopean man retired to regular Junin duties just 2 years later. "That wasn't totally true. I could use it, but not with any more finesse than a civilian." Prior to completing the 1.5 years of Anbu stealth and tactics training, Itachi had a real lack of skill with a sword. He had completely changed by the time he returned. He had been the ideal agent for Anbu after completing Anbu training. Itachi was proficient in all of the common shinobi weapons and knew practically every jutsu he could use. He was also so good at hiding his tracks that anyone attempting to follow him would be unsuccessful, assuming they even noticed them at all. Upon observing the teenager's extraordinary skill, Kakashi gave up his position to the ninja as soon as he demonstrated it. They had stayed in touch until he was 15 years old, at which point Uchiha Itachi left the village after the Uchiha massacre. Kakashi was a completely different matter from the beginning. He had been at ease handling any sharp object. He had joined the special unit soon after his first mission as a Junin, when his prized sword, the White Fang, was broken and replaced with an Anbu issue blade. Prior to being cleared to apply, a Junin had to have completed at least 5 B-class or higher missions. Kakashi was only in the training for 9 months when he joined, instead of the full 18 months. After removing his mask, he preferred to go on missions alone and rarely formed teams. Since Kakashi was still in training when Minato assumed office, the young ninja was taken aback when his teacher approached to deliver the commencement address. Kakashi had been resentful for some time after Minato's downfall, but he continued to perform his duties for Anbu. Some claimed that he did them better than before, while others claimed that he appeared to be the same during his years at Anbu. He was the target of numerous rumors. Naruto had chosen to sit on top of the mountain that featured the faces of both the current and former Hokage sitting on his late father's head. He recalled spending a lot of time up here as a child. He had been asking himself, "What should I do?" for a long time, and he had yet to find the answer. From behind him, Sakura said, "I think you should take the job. You've been wanting it since we were kids. And I can tell you still want it now." She moved to take a seat beside him. "Sakura, I promised him I'd never work as a ninja again." "You won't be working as a ninja." Did the original Japanese samurai that gave ninjas their missions act as ninja? Naruto remarked, "That's different." Naruto glanced at the woman seated beside him and said, "They weren't living in a village surrounded by ninja who wanted them to be a leader against their master's wishes." She took his hand in hers and kissed him, saying, "His wish was for you to uphold the samurai way. Maybe you should bring that old style of leadership back." She got up and started to walk back home, saying, "I'm going back to the house. I'll see you there." Once more, Naruto found himself alone with his thoughts, reflecting on the numerous things he needed to think about. His thoughts drifted to the vision that had appeared to him. Another dragon was concealed in its shadow, a hidden enemy, of course, but where? Who was the first adversary? Was this a vision of something far off or of something that would happen soon? "I'm the fox. Of course, are the dragons a symbol of some enemy that will kill me?" Although Naruto disliked the thought of dying, he would not lie down like a wounded animal and let death take him in silence. Instead, he would face his demise with dignity. Therefore, the fox's death must have another meaning, such as a potential character change sitting there. Naruto searched his mind for the answers. He made the decision to return home as well. Trusting that the answers would be revealed in due time, he got to his feet. Surveying the village below. "Now they want me badly." Tears briefly trickled down his cheeks. Upon reaching his house, he discovered that Itachi was not there, and many of his former pupils had also left. With a shrug, he headed to his bedroom, paused outside the door, and preferred the bathroom because the bathtub beckoned before going to bed. He soaked himself in the bathtub, hoping that his thoughts would be cleansed like the perspiration of a battle. Just like the dirt and grime of the day, although his thoughts had been momentarily set aside, they remained unresolved. He discovered that he slept well that night after putting on his yukata. He got ready for battle. When he woke up the following morning, he wore his white gi first, then his black one, and finally his hakama. The pleated pants slipped into his boots as he put them on. He then meditated to prepare his mind for combat. Then he put on his armor, that gleaming red armor that was as shiny as the day he got it. He picked up his spear, tucked his sword and tanto into his belt, and headed out to meet his army. He moved through the streets, which were eerily deserted. The civilians in the shelters were still there, and although the population had not decreased significantly, the streets were completely deserted. He understood why when he reached the location where the army would gather before marching. His whole army was in front of him, waiting for him in rank and file, with both samurai and ninja standing there. Naruto raised his spear, causing the army to cheer. This is unexpected, but also good. I hope you all slept well. Today we're going to annihilate the Uchiha's army. At that point, smaller units were to be positioned at key locations throughout the village, far enough apart to defend the entire city but close enough to support one another. The scouts were to go out first. A little while later, the scouts that had been dispatched came back. The vision suddenly made sense. Sir, the enemy army appears larger than before. We estimate another 1,000 soldiers. He turned back to face his soldiers and said, "Thank you." Although it was only a 2-to-1 ratio at the moment, Naruto intended to follow his strategy from yesterday and use some of the Nine Tails chakra to help him defend. We seem to have hit a snag. We'll be fighting a force that is 1,000 stronger than before. No matter, we still overpower the forces. It'll take at least a 3-to-1 ratio to destroy us all. The majority of the soldiers would enter through this gate, which he was standing at and from which the scouts had returned. Now that he was aware of Naruto's strength, Sasuke was preparing a calculated attack. They were attempting to siege a city that was ready for it, so it would be challenging. He concluded that while it would be difficult to invade the city, the wall would probably be less fortified on the mountain above it than it would be below. About 500 of his troops had been divided up and sent to that side. The remaining troops, approximately 4,000 in number, marched directly to the village's north end. Naruto turned around when he noticed the army perched on the wall. "Here they come," he yelled while addressing the surrounding soldiers. Before ordering the ambush squad to attack outside the wall, he waited until they were within 50 yards of it. They used both earth jutsu and fire jutsu, which would cause the most disruption in the ranks, to attack the army. Only roughly 50 men were killed in the initial attack, but the chaos it created gave the archers and the 36 clones Naruto created the opportunity to fire explosive arrows at the army. The goal of the archers' fire was to dwindle the enemy's numbers, not to slow them down. They fired as much as they could before the advancing enemy approached the wall too closely and turned on the back of the ranks. The Konoha soldiers who were waiting for the enemies who would be at a bottleneck in entering started attacking them as soon as the enemy broke through the gate, killing the enemies as they entered. Naruto dropped with his spear in hand, landed directly in the center of the enemies, and started attacking them after leaving his clones to shoot the spear's blade and pointed butt cap. Both crushed skulls, impaled several people, or simply smashed the shaft against their windpipe when they fell. With his spear in tow, Naruto spun around and used Itachi no Kasai variant to strike out. The enormous surge of energy persisted through adversaries until it subsided. As the samurai general turned dozens of the enemy into corpses, the Konoha forces looked on. The man slaughtered those who had attempted to enter that way. Those outside made the decision to attempt to reach a different gate. Many Junin were stationed at the southern gate, along with Kakashi, Itachi, and a sizable contingent of Anbu forces. After destroying a significant portion of this wall, a group of ninjas stormed down the mountain into the village during the Second Great Shinobi War. Because Sasuke was aware of the breach and would attempt to take advantage of it, Naruto had chosen to assign the 2 members of the military he trusted the most to guard that wall. At the west gate, Hyuga Neji spotted the approaching enemies, and the men he was leading were prepared to repel them. Rock Lee was standing, dressed more traditionally in a green gi and black martial arts pants, his hair cropped shorter. He had chosen his own path and was therefore a different person. No longer wanting to be a clone of his former teacher, he wore plated gauntlets on his hands, with overlapping metal plates that reached his elbows and over his knuckles, enabling studded metal plates to reinforce his punches. He had decided to go with his friend to watch over the western gate. Approximately 1/3 of the army was currently charging in this direction. The remaining soldiers that Naruto had not yet killed were moving east. Arima and Sakura were left to guard that gate since Naruto had made the decision to follow the army east. He asked the Nine Tails for chakra as he made his way there, letting the red shroud cover him. When Naruto saw that the Konoha ninja were outnumbered and already engaged in combat, he accelerated and leapt over the entire Konoha ninja detachment. He landed on an enemy ninja with his spear pointing downward in front of him, skewering the man with the spear that had become firmly embedded in the ground. Unconcerned about drawing his swords in the confined area, Naruto switched to hand combat, slamming his gauntlet into a man's face. This was his chance to pull out his sword. The Konoha ninja seized the chance to change the situation. The Konoha ninja launched an attack, taking down dozens of the mercenary force while everyone's attention was focused on the man who appeared to drop from the sky covered in red chakra. When the enemies parted, Naruto felt a sudden lightness, which gave him time to notice that his armor was gone. He was standing there wearing boots, a leather coat, and his typical dress. He found his spear still in his hand and was brandishing it with literally terrifying skill, falling enemy ninja left, right, up, down, and at various other angles. The red chakra shroud had also disappeared, but he could still feel the demon chakra in his body. He passed in and out of the ninja's field of vision on both sides, vanishing long enough for everyone to speculate about his next target. With a sly smile and blood streaming from his dark blue armor, Sasuke entered the clearing. Sasuke pulled out his sword and challenged Naruto, saying, "So Dobi, it seems that you've got some skill. Unfortunately it was you I choose to kill." After throwing the spear up and slamming its blade into the ground, Naruto rose from his battle stance. He grabbed his katana, and as the Uzumaki stood poised for any assault, Sasuke disappeared and fell on Naruto, who merely grabbed the blade out of the air and broke it in two with his fingers. Sasuke tried to stand, but Naruto went to where his spear was, took it from the ground, turned, and threw it, spearing the Uchiha's head to the ground. "Don't toy with me, Sasuke. I've had enough of your mocking me. I could have killed you at any time, but now I'm fed up, so take your death like a true ninja." Naruto threw his former teammate back with a blast of pure chakra before rushing forward, severing Sasuke's leg tendons. Then he withdrew the spear. Naruto turned to the terrified ninja and said, "All you had to do was come home, and all of it could be avoided." As he wiped the blood from his spear on a man's cloak nearby, the Uzumaki uttered the words, "Any who don't wish to share a similar fate will turn and run." Every enemy ninja fled and turned tail. Haruno Sakura ran to Naruto from the numbers as he glanced at his remaining soldiers, who were all cheering. The years had been kind to this stunning kunoichi. Feeling the blood on her clothing, Naruto took her in his arms. "You've done it, you've defeated him. No more worries," Sakura replied. He looked up at Sakura, who said, "I know, but remember that I can't become Hokage, my vow," observing the demon chakra's symptoms in his face. After hearing the words, "You won't be coming back as a ninja, you'll be the samurai leader of a ninja army, just like you are now," Naruto came to the realization that he was actually presuming the role of Hokage and was currently leading the ninja into battle. He had been pretending to be Hokage for the last few days, without the paperwork. He said to himself, "So I have fine, I'll take the position, I understand now." She kissed him on the lips and said, "And by the way, Naruto, happy birthday." Naruto's capacity to remain conscious diminished along with the demonic energy. He became aware that he was in the hospital when he awoke. He got up and realized he was naked, so he found his clothes and said, "This is where it all started." He recalled that he had killed Sasuke without his armor, so he asked, "I wonder where my armor disappeared off to." When Sakura entered, he had just finished getting dressed. "Well, I see you're finally awake. How long has it been?" "About a week. You literally had no chakra left. It was because of the fox that you're even alive. He sustained you until your chakra began returning. We got the village cleaned up. It seems that Kakashi and Itachi had their hands full while up at the southern entrance. It's a good thing you put them up there." She gave him his katana and wakizashi. "I've never realized how beautiful those swords are. The golden-colored blades, the red handles, and the hilt's depiction of the 9 tails were all works of art." Recalling the moment he first saw them, Naruto remarked, "No one will ever have a pair of swords like these. I suppose I've got some sort of duties as a Hokage now." "No, your official inauguration into office isn't for a week. We've got to celebrate your birthday party." "Ah, right, let me have some time to myself. I'll meet you back at the house." After saying goodbye with a kiss, he went to take care of his needs. "All right, I'm on hospital duty right now. I'll be at the house in a few hours." He had asked for the grave markers for his fallen men at the stonemason's shop and provided the address where they could be delivered. Numerous ninja and civilians approached him, bowed, and expressed gratitude. A woman once approached him. "Lord Uzumaki, I have to apologize." "What for, friend?" "My brother, Urashima, attacked you a few years ago. I've come to apologize for him." "Ma'am, he was doing what he believed to be the right thing. Have you made a marker for him here?" "He's buried in Yokusho where I killed him." Naruto pulled a wad of bills out of his GI and said, "We can't afford it. He was our main source of income. Now it's just me, working at a shop. Here, buy him a nice grave marker." She bowed low and said, Thank you, sir. After that, Naruto carried out his remaining tasks. When he got home, he discovered that all of his friends and students had gathered at his mansion. Sakura had approached him from the front. Her eyebrow went up when he said, "Sakura, there's something I need to ask you." "What is it, Naruto?" he asked, lowering himself to one knee and pulling out a small box from his GI. When they saw the ring, there was a round of gasps in the room. "Will you marry me?" Two pink topaz gemstones were set on either side of a platinum band with a diamond set in the center. Sakura's knees went weak, and she had to use all of her strength to stay upright as she felt her heart skip a beat. "Sakura?" He noticed that she was crying. The round of applause that followed was not particularly surprising. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you," Jiraiya announced. "Looks like we'll be celebrating two things." There was a lot of sharing of drinks and congratulations at the party. When it was all over, many of his friends were unconscious and sleeping off the alcohol in his house. A week later, donning a golden silk GI and black hakama, Naruto was wearing his finest outfit. Today was his inauguration, and he was a little anxious because he had made the decision to tell the truth about his tenant in any case. A lot of ninja were inquiring about the red chakra. Tsunade was currently giving her speech of resignation when she called Naruto up. "You all know me, but what I'm about to tell you is something that only some of you know." He exhaled deeply. 20 years ago, when my father, Namikaze Minato, was the Hokage, the Kyuubi no Yoko attacked. Now the younger generation was told that my father killed the beast, but people who know about demons know it's impossible for a human to kill a demon of that caliber. No. That demon was sealed into my stomach, and I have been the prison for the Kyuubi for the past 20 years, and I will continue to be for the remainder of my life. The crowd was quiet for a moment before a person's shout changed everything. When they said, "We don't care about that anymore," they all cheered. Naruto succeeded in putting them to rest. Naruto bowed and stepped down from the podium to accept the hat and robe, which he would never wear but were customarily passed down. "I want all of you to know, however, that I've not forgotten how I was treated. No, but I have forgiven all that mistreated me. Now, everyone wants me to be Hokage now. My dream has been recognized, and I'll put all of my effort into doing this job in the best way that I can. Thank you." Naruto's lifelong dream had finally come true. He was the Hokage of Rokudame.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.